From Toronto to Tokyo, and from Thonia to Syrinx, this is The Basement, your companion to the Ready Player One novel. Join our hosts each episode for complete chapter breakdowns and deep dives into the pop culture references through a series of challenges and homework assignments. The Basement is the Ready Player One podcast for people who love things. And now, please welcome Albert and the rest of the Gunchers for this week's episode. Hello, Gunchers. You are in The Basement. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 0017, The Space Giants. We are going to be looking at chapter 17 of the Ready Player One novel. We'll be talking through the narrative as usual and going through all of the pop culture references, and boy, were there a lot of them in this chapter. So joining me tonight is none other than Dr. Will 8-Bit. Mr. Will, how you doing today?
Fantastic. Happy National TV Dinner Day to you, Albert.
Is it national? Is that football?
No.
It really is
yeah,
national?
Today is the first day of the football season, but it's also celebrates today in 1953. Swanson made the first TV dinner in California. It was turkey. So there you go.
Our lives were
TV
changed.
Dinner.
Our lives were changed forever.
That's right.
It reminds me of Better Off Dead, where the mom wraps those up at Christmas time and gives them to the... You remember that scene where she's like,
I do.
You like raisins? Okay. All right, we're gonna talk about chapter 14, and we've got no time to spare, so let's get right at it. Let's talk about real quickly. We'll do the summary. We'll do a quick narrative step through of what's going on in the chapter, and then we'll end with all the pop culture stuff. So, we covered chapters 14 through 16 in the last episode, and basically in here, with the scoreboard kind of filling up with Sixers left and right, war breaks out on Ludus, and word starts to spread about where the first key's located. And then out of not having a home anymore and not feeling safe at all, Wade decides to pick up everything he's got. He literally grabs a few possessions, stuff that he needs for the Oasis, and he heads out to Columbus, Ohio, which is the headquarters of not only Gregarious Games, but also the IOI headquarters as well. So that's kind of, in a high level, that's really what happens in those three chapters. For chapter 17, let's start with the first part of it, because the book, this chapter takes a big divergence from what we're used to, at least up until this point. And I want to say this is the only episode or the only chapter that I recall that actually has like text messages in that, right? But it starts off like an old school chat message, and you've got Wade, you've got Artemis and Parzival basically chat back and forth. And it does feel like this is like puppy love throughout all of it. It's interesting that it's Artemis that really wants to do a chat message. She wants to do strictly text, where Parzival is saying, we can get a virtual chat room, we can see each other, but she's kind of keeping her distance here, it almost feels like. But I mean, so before we kind of break this down any further, any thoughts around what was her motivation? What was her intent for wanting to go text only? Was it simply because she was still not sure of Parzival and wasn't sure if this guy was stalking, deadly dangerous to her in some way? Or was it she just wanted to protect herself, didn't want to fall in love, thought there was potential there that they could start liking each other, and she didn't want to go into that?
Look, bro, next year's my 25th wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
And I still can't understand my wife half the time. So I'm not going to try to pretend to know the motivations of an imaginary character based on reading 117 pages of text to point. No idea. Anytime I've ever tried to guess what a woman was thinking, I was wrong. So
good advice. It starts off pretty casual, and she does feel very defensive. Like it is very defensive. And as the chapter progresses, especially even in this conversation, she starts to open up a little bit more, starts giving more and more details, very personal details that kind of culminates a little bit later when they actually start going out on dates. And I'm using air quotes there for anybody listening to the podcast right now.
You can use those for my dates too.
Yeah, dates, right.
We went on a date and just watched Netflix in the living room.
Yeah. Or drove to Target. Let's see. So we learned a couple things about both of them here, and probably more Artemis than Parzival. But through the course of, they were playing this game where they're, exchanging questions and personal information, that kind of thing. So we learned that Parzival obviously is in high school. He's about to graduate. But Artemis has already been out. Like, she's in her first year of college, which is interesting. So, and he makes a joke about dating an older woman, which I thought was funny. We learned that Artemis is studying poetry and creative writing as her degrees in college. Parsifal's 18, Artemis is 19. They both have no siblings and no parents, which I thought was interesting. And I have in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about Ready Player 2 and like how much of what we learned about all these characters is really there and really true, and how much of it he may throw a curveball and say, oh, she has a mother, or she has a father, or she does have siblings, and she doesn't talk about them or want anybody to know about them. Not to say that this is going to be, a big revelation or anything, but I take her at face value, at least here. Let's see. Artemis is brunette. She's got blue eyes. Her favorite movie is Highlander. And that movie, like, I know you did this, I think, with something else, but have you actually gone through and looked to see, like, what pop culture reference has been mentioned the most out of all of them in Ready Player One?
I have not.
Because Highlander's got to be up there. Like, Highlander comes up a lot, right? Let me think. What else? What else is another one that we seem to kind of come back to? Star Trek is another one that comes up a lot. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Oh my goodness, that's another one.
I might put my money there. Doctor Who gets a lot of love too.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to go back and look at that. But these are obviously big influences from. But again, Highlander. I don't know how many times we've mentioned this already on the show, talked about it. But and then we come to find out that Artemis lives up in the Pacific Northwest as well. And throughout all of this, back and forth and chatting, I mean, they're really kind of starting to bond on a very deep and emotional level. And there's people that I've talked to you about this, and I think I've mentioned on this show. We've talked about on Cantina Cast as well. But online, just dating and online personas and avatars and playing World of Warcraft and stuff, you really get to know people, even though you don't ever see them and you don't physically interact with them. There is a way that you get to know somebody really well, and I think that's exactly what's happening here with him. He starts to fall deeply in love with her on a different level, more than just like the superficial facial features or she looks good and that kind of thing. He's kind of bought into who personality is and the likes that she has. He's starting to realize that they've got a lot of things in common, and that's really kind of steaming and fueling the fire in a lot of ways. But in fact, I think he even says that she changed the way he thought. Like, she's had that much of an impact on him that he's starting to really think about changing the way who he is. And some of this kind of plays out a little bit later when he opens up more. He's not as cautious about the Oasis and being out in PvP zones and all that. He starts, throwing caution to the wind kind of there. And then he says that he's never connected with another human being, even H, on a level like this before.
But to be fair, is there a guy who's ever not said that about whatever woman he just met? Like, you could be in your 15th marriage and some dude will be like, I've never met anyone like her, bro. She's changed my life. She makes me a better person. These are just things guys say, bro.
Oh, you're still all the thunder, all the magic is gone. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm sorry, folks. Marriage is beautiful.
Yeah, it changed my life. I've never been in a relationship like this before. All right. From there, we get a couple things on just leveling. This is where we officially learned that you can get up to level 99, which is the highest level, and they call it the climb to 99. He does talk about he's doing a split class warrior mage kind of thing. And so this goes back to what we were talking about a couple chapters ago when I'm not going to say I called her and declined out because I didn't do that, but more proof that at least in the Oasis, you can dual class, or multi-class, depending on which version of D&D you're playing. And they start going out. So they end up doing some flick syncs together. They do Goonies. We'll talk about here briefly a little bit as well. So, and again, they are truly dating, but in a virtual world in the Oasis, which has got to be kind of cool if you think about it. Would be kind of nice to kind of do a lot of that stuff. The last part of this chapter really ends with the quatrain. He's trying to break this down. The captain conceals a jade key in a dwelling long neglected, but you can only blow the whistle when all the trophies are collected. And, he kind of puts two and two together and realizes the captain has to be Captain Crunch. The Captain Crunch, John Draper, but he's still struggling with the dwelling long neglected and what whistle that and trophies, right? That piece hasn't come to him, and that will come to him, I think, in another chapter or two more chapters here. And then finally it ends with them officially going out on date nights within the Oasis. And, in his mind, and this probably goes back to what you're saying, like every guy thinks this, right? It's on, right? This is it. They're dating. This is his girl. And in her mind, she's like, no, dude, we're not really dating. Even though, she's going out and doing this stuff. In her mind, at least, she's telling him that we're not dating. And that has a big kind of impact on his psyche a little bit later. But why risk all this, right? I mean, is it just stupid love? Is he just,
Yeah, man,
punch
that's all
drunk
it
in
is.
love?
It's all it's ever been. It's all, I mean, first wars. It all starts with some dude in love with a chick. Like everything, every
Yeah.
reality show, every call to arms starts there. There, you can trace it back to some guy in love with a woman.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't.
Well,
Not that
that's
I'm
good to
hating on.
know. It's good to know that even though in the future, we'll have things like the Oasis, we as human beings don't change, right?
Yeah,
We're
and let me
very
tell you.
predictable.
Let me tell you something, Albert. I would say in high school, you made me H anytime you were dating someone. Like that was me. Like so, I will tell your listeners the difference, right? So, if I were dating someone hypothetically in high school, it was typically from our circle of friends, right? People that we both knew.
Mm.
And so my social interaction with the group never really changed, even if I was dating someone within the group. We all kind of still hung out. We still kind of went out together, that whole deal. Not Percival Burt over here. Percival Burt, when he found a chick, they were gone. Like I wouldn't see him for weeks. I mean, I'd see him at school. I wouldn't see him for weeks, and we lived together. And I'm just sitting there, poor old H, wondering what's happening. Text gone unread. Meanwhile, he's making dream catchers in the forest.
Oh yeah, I think I almost did that actually one time. I forgot all about that.
Oh, I didn't. Got me
Apparently
right
not.
in the feels. I don't regret any of that because I will tell you during that time, me and your brother became really close and we watched more Next Generation than any two men should.
Should or ever. Oh, that's great. All right. Well, with that, I guess we'll talk after the show. But yeah, so this chapter really ends and leads right into 18 with him basically saying that he's about to make the stupidest mistake of his life, right? And spoiler alert, he tells her that he loves her in the next chapter, but he got to that point where he was at the point now where he just couldn't hold back anymore. He had to tell her, and that didn't work so well for him. All right, so that's the chapter. Any final thoughts? Anything?
No, I think you got it. Nailed it.
Nailed it. All right, we'll move on to the pop because there's a lot of it. All right, so let me pull this up because I thought you were going to say something. Let's
I can. I'm going to keep talking about the way you mistreated me when you were dating women in high
Maybe
school.
That's a bad idea. Okay, we're going to talk about. Sorry, I got to move a couple things here. The first thing is this show, Saturday Night Live.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it?
No,
Yeah, that's a little show that came out. All right, so let's. Saturday Night Live was ran from 1975. It's still currently going to this day, and they are on 45 seasons now, 889 episodes total, which is just mind blowing. How many times? And these things aren't short. I mean, this is what did they do? An hour and a half each show?
Yeah,
90 minutes. Let's see, created by Lauren Michaels, and the synopsis from Internet Movie Database is a famous guest host stars in parodies and sketches created by the cast of this witty show. And I guess that's probably fair. There's a lot more to it. This is so before we get into break this down a little bit more, but you and I have watched this together many times. Are you still following this? Do you find like you fall out of favor with certain casts, but then come back and realize that maybe they weren't so bad? Or have you go through that? I think we all kind of do, but I'm probably just speaking for myself then.
Yeah, I think the internet kind of ruined this for me because typically an episode of Saturday Night Live, I would say past 98, 99, only had probably to me 2 or 3 funny skits in the 90-minute package. And most of the time I didn't care for the artist because I was already starting to form my crotchety old man persona.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So with YouTube and stuff, I could just watch. So I follow the channel, on YouTube. So I watch the ones that trend the most, and that's basically it.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I'm sorry. I apologize. I skipped over the reference, not intentionally. So here's a reference real quick. It says, "You're just as famous as I am," says Parzival. "And if I'm such a rock star, how come the media always portrays me as an unwashed geek who never goes outside? I take it you saw the SNL skit they did about us," said Artemis. And that was it. So it sounds like, they've gotten, right, and that kind of speaks to the level of pop culture that Artemis and Parzival they are now being spoofed on Saturday Night Live, which is kind of a badge of honor if you think about it, right? I mean, if you're a celebrity or anybody really, and you're on Saturday Night Live, for the most part, it's kind of cool that they're doing that. But I guess it's all about perspective as well. There've been some pretty bad ones out there as well. And same thing with me. Like there was certainly a time in my life where I watched this. I could not miss an episode on Saturday night, right? And it was probably during, well, we'll talk about that here. It's going to be during the era where my favorite cast was and stuff. But I'm one of those that every time the cast changes, I'm like, okay, let me give me watch and see how things go. And it always is a little rocky, but I get it, right? They allow these guys to get their legs for you to kind of start to adapt and rewire yourself to understand and sometimes even come to appreciate the comedy because it is different, right? Sometimes it's starkly different. But since that probably in the last 15 years, I haven't watched this like you as religiously as I used to. And it is one of these things where I will catch the highlights, or if somebody's talking about it at work, and then I'll go pick it up and watch it. And I have to say, like the cast that's out right now, which we'll talk about here, but they're a cast that I was like, this is terrible. I'm never gonna like this. And now I really like this cast that's out. Like I really appreciate what they're doing, and it's some pretty good stuff. But I thought I want to talk about like what goes into the mix of Saturday Night Live and how they get to the 90-minute skits on Saturday. And it starts on Monday. They do like a free-form pitch meeting where they get together with the host, the writers, everybody gets together and they just pitch ideas all day long. Tuesday, they come in and that's all writing day. So they'll write all day long Tuesday for all these skits that were pitched. Wednesday, they come back and like no later than 5 p.m., everybody gets back together and they do a round table where they go around. There's like 50 people in attendance. They read all the scripts. This takes up to like 3 hours. And then all the cast and everybody goes home. Lauren Michaels and a couple other people will get together that Wednesday night, as long as it takes, and figure out what skits are going to fit into that 90 minute show. So they do like kind of like the final cut. Thursday rolls around. There's rewrites that happen. Sometimes there's rehearsing. Friday comes around. There's more rehearsing throughout the day. And then this can go all the way until Saturday morning. And then Saturday, that's when the host actually gets their, it can be earlier, but sometimes it's not until Saturday afternoon that the guest host actually starts doing their monologue. And then by Saturday night, boom, they're recording. So I mean, you think about it, it is so crazy that they've been doing this. You think about it, 45 seasons now. And maybe the format is changed a little bit, but even still, to do this week in and week out, I think is pretty remarkable. Like I just can't even imagine. And sometimes it shows, it comes through where they're not prepared or they're breaking character because they forgot lines and all that stuff happens. But credit to them. They've just had an incredible cast over the years of actors and actresses that have just made us laugh for years and years. Let's see. So I thought we'd kind of talk about our favorite cast members. And so I've got up here I've got 4 generations. We've got and it's really neat because there's a guy that out there, and I forget now which website, so I do apologize. He broke all of these casts down by generations. And so you can see in the top left-hand corner, that's the first one. So this first generation here, they're calling the not ready for primetime players. And that's kind of a play on when, you know, the mentality there is that they weren't really ready for primetime, that they weren't sure how people were going to take to this, that kind of thing. And obviously this is a pretty big group. You've got people like, you know, Martin Short, Chevy Chase, John Belushi, Gilda Radner, Bill Murray, Billy Crystal, Joe Piscopo. I mean, these guys are like famous, right? You hear these names and they're synonymous with comedy. From there, from 86 to 94, this was Lauren's return. So Lauren Michaels had left for a while. He came back, and I think he came back when the other cast was still there, but this is really where he kind of helped build the cast that you see here. And so, you know, these guys are like the Chris Farleys and Dana Carveys. You got Adam Sandler in there, Mike Myers, Chris Rock. I mean, every one of these in their own right is pretty amazing, right? And then the generation 3 is the more cowbell. So they've christened that for none other than Mr. Will Ferrell there, right? But you got Will Ferrell, Tim Meadows, Daryl Hammond's in there. What's her name? Sherry O'Terry. I'm trying to draw this like off my memory now. Jimmy Fallon was part of this group, Tracy Morgan, et cetera, right? All these great people. And then lastly, this was I guess the more recent, although there is a new cast that's even more recent than this, but they called these guys the Digital Kids. And this is from 2005 to 2014. And so this had Kristen Wiig, McKinnon, Fred Armstead, Jason Sudeikis, Jay Farrow, Myers, Moynihan, Hader. And these guys are the ones like I didn't know them when they came in. There was a period of time when I watched the show And I was like, these guys are never going to make it. And like, look at them now. You know, most of these guys are pretty big guys. So, so let me pause right here. Let me get your thoughts on after you've seen all these generations, like which one would you say is like your favorite generation, the one that you would go back to and say, if I had to watch a season of episodes and only these episodes for this particular cast, it's going to be these guys?
Yeah, I would go with the second iteration. I'd go with the 80s folks. To a person, I find them absolutely hilarious. There's no one on there who's not a pure character actor. And I think that's part of the reason why I gravitated toward it during the 80s and 90s more so than today, is because, you know, we were in theater and we were doing this, and I loved character actors more than main characters. And that's all SNL was. It was just a collection of, there was ne'er a straight man in sight, and that was usually the role of the guest host.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm going to go there, with a close second, of course, being Will Ferrell and the guys. I mean, none of these are bad casts. I mean, they're all good in their own right. And of course, if you pick the first cast of SNL, there's no losers there. I mean, they're all amazing.
Well, Will and I actually didn't talk about this before we did the show. I threw the question out there, just tell us what your favorite is. And we kind of landed on the same one. Big shocker, since we grew up together and watched all this together. But yeah, this is, and if you look right here, I've got a lot of pictures of some of the characters that were, and this is not it by any means. This is not a comprehensive list, but you know, you've got the Hans and Franz, you've got Pat, Unfrozen Caveman with Phil Hartman. Let's see, Dana Carvey's in here. I mean, Toonces the Driving Cat. There's just these really, really iconic characters that they made, and like you said, these were actually characters, right? You've got even Adam Sandler in there, who's doing Opera Boy, which, by the way, that started on Remote Control. Do you remember the MTV game show?
I remember that.
Yeah, I think that's where he started, if I'm not mistaken. But some of the characters that he did there, like Opera Boy, made their way over into Saturday Night Live as well, and of course Wayne's World. Okay, so then I got another question out there. I threw another question at Will, and I said, hey, why don't you tell me who your favorite all-time Saturday Night Live actor is? And I know you struggled with this, but I think you narrowed it down to like 27, right?
I had it down to 20. I got it down to 20 before lunch today. And I'm going Chris Farley. I think I'm just going to go with Chris Farley. I believe he is probably, since John Belushi, the best pure comedian in every type of discipline. You don't see comedians like that who are doing a lot of slapstick. Really, he is. I don't know that I've ever seen him do it. His Matt Foley is in my top 3 for sure. I'm a motivational speaker.
Well, oop-dee-dee. What does he say? Well, la-dee-da, la-dee-freaking-da, or whatever it is. Yeah, and he's kind of here in the middle here. I did include him because you're right. I mean, everything he did was magical. And we talked about that when we did the Wayne's World episode, that he's on there as a premiere film, on there for all of about 30 seconds, and makes the most out of nothing with that scene, and it's still funny, right?
He's funny in the Coneheads, and that movie is terrible. It is one of 2 films I walked out of. The Coneheads.
What was the other one, now that we're talking about it?
Ang Lee's Hulk.
Oh, really?
When we never saw the Hulk. I was there like 90 minutes. I'm like, there's no Hulk. I'm leaving. What is happening?
All right. So for me, and I struggled too. Like, there's so many great people on here and so many great actors throughout the years that it was really hard to narrow it down. But I did land on Mike Myers, and primarily because I think about his skits in Saturday Night Live. He's got so many memorable characters, and we showed a couple of those earlier. But then, like, his movies were, you think about Austin Powers. I did like all of them. Even the last one I think was funny. So I Married an Axe Murder is still one of my favorite all-time movies.
That is. But how about Love Guru? How's that working for you?
Yeah, it's not the greatest. Yeah, it's a little stinker there, for sure.
Is she looking at me bum?
The bum jokes got a little old after a while, and also he's a Liverpool fan. Not that plays into it, but he's a big Liverpool.
I'm sure it did.
But yeah, he's great. I do like just about everything that he's done. So it was hard. Like, Will Ferrell's up there for me. Now I gotta say this. Like, when you look at these brackets here that I was showing, where they broke down all the characters, what they were doing was they were, again, breaking these down and having people vote for who was their favorite. Do you want to take a guess as to who made it down to the final 2 and who the favorite was.
I'm going to say, I didn't even look at the ending bracket, so I don't know who the...
So it ended with Eddie Murphy, Bill Murray on First Generation.
Man.
On the second one, it was Chris Farley, Phil Hartman. And then the third one was Tina Fey, Will Ferrell. And the last one was Kristen Wiig and Bill Hader.
I'm ready to go. So I'm picking the winner out of all combined.
Yep.
Who won of the 8? Number 1 of the 8. I'm going Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy is correct.
Yep. I don't know. He probably has the biggest box office amongst that group.
He smokes everybody else, honestly.
All right. So with that in mind, we talked about the cast a little bit. Who's the best host? Who's the best host you've seen on Saturday Night Live?
Oh wait, you didn't pick. Wait, hold on. You didn't pick the final. They broke it down all the way to the very end.
Oh, I got to do each one of these.
Yeah. So
okay.
Eddie Murphy.
I'm going to do them quick. Eddie Murphy. That's a lot. Chris Farley
he wins. Chris Farley did not win.
Boo.
So it was Eddie Murphy against Phil Hartman on the left-hand side. And you can't really see that because I'm not showing the full bracket. And then on the right-hand side was Will Ferrell versus Bill Hader.
Oh, Will Ferrell beats Bill Hader.
So Will Ferrell won. And then between Phil Hartman, Eddie Murphy.
Phil Hartman and Eddie Murphy? Eddie Murphy wins.
Eddie Murphy does not win. Phil Hartman won, actually.
Get out of there.
So you got Phil Hartman versus Will Ferrell. Who won?
Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell. Yep. He won.
Wow.
I don't know how much science went into this outside of just voting.
I don't know.
All right, but let's talk about this too. So I want to talk about favorite skits. Oh, we didn't talk about favorite skits. These are some of my favorites that I've got here on the screen. Again, by no means a comprehensive list because there's just too freaking many of them. But anything with the Family Feud, anything with Jeopardy. I've got Black Jeopardy up there, and I've got Tom Hanks on Black Jeopardy, which I think is going to go down as one of the more funny ones that they've ever done. Sweaty Balls, had to leave that one in there. New Girlfriend with Sudeikis and Armisen down there. I don't know if you've ever seen that one where he comes over and he starts spazzing out. It's pretty funny. Alien Abduction with Kate McKinnon. I think she's another one that's done a really great job in the most recent cast. And then the Bird Family, where Will Ferrell keeps eating food and spitting it into his mouth. And it's just, it's just so disturbing. What did I miss? Anything? What was your favorite skit all time?
Celebrity Jeopardy is my favorite skit of all time. I would say amongst the digital kids, Stefan is my favorite character. And overall...
Oh, I forgot him. You know what? Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but Stefan there were several funniest skits or funniest character of all time from like Rolling Stone, Variety Magazine. He was number 1 every single time.
Really?
Yes,
he is
really
hilarious. Like, even when he breaks character, which he does frequently, still hilarious.
A lot. In all his skits, he breaks character.
But I will say the skit that if I watch it right now and I will laugh out loud, not just the LOLs. Every time I see it, it's Peyton Manning's United Way commercial.
Oh, yes.
That's
where he pegs the kids in the back of the head. Oh, man. Yeah, that's...
I'm saying I kill a snitch.
Yeah. All right. And then the last thing that I want to talk about was just kind of they've had so many great guests out there and so many great moments on Saturday Night Live. And there's a lot of political moments and that sort of thing. So I kind of lumped all that together. But these were some of my favorites. There's Ashley Simpson. I actually got to see that one live when it happened, and I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if I thought it was a skit until they went to commercial. And I was like,
so disturbing.
What? And it's so awkward. Even to this day, like so many years have passed since that happened, and you cannot help but cringe when you watch that. There's Nirvana in 1992, their first performance, which they freaking slayed it in terms of just the quality. I don't want to go back. Sorry about that. I got the Pearl Jam up there from 1992. That's only a few months after Nirvana came on Saturday Night Live. And I couldn't find any video, any clips about it. You can hear the audio a lot, and I have an audio version of it that's really good quality, but for whatever reason, the videos that are on YouTube have all been pulled down by, I don't know, NBC or somebody else. LL Cool J, that was a big one for me because I was a big fan of LL Cool J, and I know when it came on, I begged to stay up that night to just see him perform, and it was just awesome. I really enjoyed that. And then I've got 2 Kanye moments up here. I've got the one where he went off on about Trump and went crazy and all that, But then I got his performance for was it Dark Fantasy,
Yep.
which I thought that's a great performance there. And then in the middle there, that's the one where Fear came on, like in 1981, I think, or maybe 78 or 81, I forget now. And that was just, you watch that, and it looks like a fight's about to break out. It's just punk rock going crazy. But anyways, that's mine. What about you? What did you narrow it down to?
Yeah, so I just got it to one, and that was Nirvana. Smells Like Teen Spirit. Now, I've seen plenty of performances, but that one's so memorable to me. I was at a debate tournament staying overnight in Longview, Texas, and all of us debate kids were in a hotel room watching SNL. And I would say almost all of us had never heard of Nirvana. And they played, and after their song was over, no one said anything. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. I mean, and then of course, I was actually already listening to Pearl Jam, but I had never listened to Nirvana, and to this day, Pearl Jam remains my favorite band. Although they canceled the concert I had tickets to, thanks COVID.
So they used to be both our favorite bands for a number of years. I think somewhere around 99, 2000, I really dug my heels into Rush and started listening to everything that I could, and they surpassed Pearl Jam. But Pearl Jam is my second, and then it's a distant third place for me in terms of bands at that point.
Yeah, ironically, I'd probably, a close second to Pearl Jam. Pearl Jam has my lifelong favorite band moniker. But if you're going to go, who's my favorite rock band of the last 20 or so years, it would be Foo Fighters, ironically.
No, they're up there for me as well. Like everything they've done is pretty freaking amazing. Like they never put out a bad album, in my opinion, and that's how I feel about Rush. Like, it's hard for me to find fault in any of the albums that Rush has put out. I know there's people that don't like certain ones, but to me, they're all golden.
Yeah, Rush is variety.
Right. Okay, well, let's get into the Pink Panther as our next reference, and let me give you the dialogue here. It says, Parzival, so you're telling me definitively that you are a female in real life? Artemis, you should have already figured that out on your own, Clouseau. Parzival, I have. Later, Artemis says, you've got a crush on me? Parzival says, you should have already figured that one out on your own, Clouseau. And so there's going back and forth, this Clouseau person who's obviously a character from the Pink Panther series of movies. So let me give you the quick breakdown of who did it and stars, and then I'll turn it over to you to give us some background on what we're talking about here. So the Pink Panther is the first one was made in 1963. These films have continued all the way to 2016, I think, or so, which you can kind of see there in the bottom right-hand corner. It stars, for the most part, a lot of different people, but in the original film, it was Peter Sellers as Inspector Clouseau. You had Herbert Lom as the former Chief Inspector Charles Dreyfus, and then you had Burt Kwok as Kato, who is like one of my favorite all-time characters, period, in any comedy. The stuff that happens in the Peter Sellers movies and what he does. So I'm going to turn it over to you to give us the synopsis of what these movies are about, and then we can talk about Clouseau.
Yeah, we'll talk about them collectively, right? So Clouseau is a bumbling and inept member of the French Sûreté. He finds himself investigating a number of major crimes, a new major crime in virtually every one of the films. Though he does not intentionally solve a single crime throughout his films until the reboot in 2009, and in fact is imprisoned at the end of the first movie. He is somehow promoted from investigator to detective to chief inspector throughout this run of films. So I'm not sure what's going on in France, but
I think there's a joke in that in itself, right?
It is absolutely ridiculous. So before we get into it, up here we have all of the 11 films, and some of these, because there are actual Pink Panther fanatics, much like we are fanatics about the 80s. Some of these films are not considered canon.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm in that group. Like there are only 4. I'm sorry, but there are 4 films that I recognize as Pink Panther. All the other ones are trash. But go on.
Give it to me.
Pink Panther, 1963, Return of the Pink Panther, The Pink Panther Strikes Again, Revenge of the Pink Panther, and that's it.
Excellent.
I don't consider any of the other ones part of the franchise.
Excellent. So, and I get your logic is Sellers is the man. Yeah,
yep,
he's the man. Agreed. He is the character. He personifies the character perfectly, attempts to do it by other actors. Some have been to various degrees of success. I actually thought Steve Martin did an okay job in the first one. The second one, the writing was terrible. He didn't have a chance. But they switched the character up a little bit in the later films, like the reboots in 2009. In that he solved those crimes. Like he actually was a genius at the end of the movie. And Peter Sellers, I loved how confident he was. Like just the idea of being that dumb and thinking yourself that smart reminds me of most of the people I come in contact with today. Yeah. So what's interesting is the first movie isn't really about Peter Sellers. It's more of like an ensemble piece. And the second film, which most people consider to be the best film, A Shot in the Dark, right? A Shot in the Dark is the only film that does not have the word Pink Panther in it.
Yeah.
Right. And it was released real quickly after the first film, like 3 months after the Pink Panther came out, A Shot in the Dark was released. Right. It was in production while the Pink Panther was going on. Although originally even that film wasn't supposed to revolve around Peter Sellers, but he had it was obvious early in production of the Pink Panther that he was going to be a star, that they just started moving it that direction.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely crazy. All right. So
so now, let me on the last two, so to be fair, I've never watched the Steve Martin stuff. Like I love Steve Martin. He's another brilliant actor. He's a great person, a great human being, period, right? But I've actually never seen the two movies that he did. And so and I don't know, for no other good reason other than I didn't give time, or it wasn't interesting to me. I'd rather watch some of these other ones. So, I mean, I heard he did a pretty good job.
He did. And there are definitely funny bits that feel like something that Peter Sellers would do, like his whole hamburger. Like I even do that sometimes when we're hanging out with friends. Would you like a hamburger?
Is that what Steve Martin does?
Yeah, Steve Martin's skit is crazy. Oh, but because he doesn't do that overpronounced French accent that you hear from Inspector Clouseau.
Right.
You know, that is like all the best lines only sound right. Like even corny jokes where he's like, "Does your dog bit?"
Oh yeah, I saw that I think that was in the trailer, I think, or something like that.
Yeah. No. And then the dog bites him. He's like, "I thought you said your dog did not bite." That is not my dog.
That's like right out of like an Airplane movie.
That's all the writing for these films was right out of Airplane.
Yeah.
And it really had, to your point, when we were talking about, Groucho Marx in the last episode, it does have a very vaudeville feel to it, where the characters are largely caricatures.
Yes.
There's a lot of physical comedy. And when there is jokes, a lot of times it's coming rapid fire duets between two characters and are almost built for that theater feel where you could be doing duets and trios and the like.
Yeah. And so what is this? This is the actual diamond. Where did you find this? I don't think this is probably in the movies, but I just don't remember this.
It's in the movies, right? So most people don't get that. And when I was a kid, I didn't understand it either, right? Like I thought the Pink Panther was that Pink Panther that was in the cartoon.
They were after the Pink Panther.
Yeah, because that's all you remember. It was like he was in the intro to most of the movies, right? Not all of them, but most of them, the Pink Panther was in there. And then to find out in the movie that the Pink Panther is actually a diamond, and a diamond that has like a rose diamond that has an imperfection that's kind of in the shape of a panther, and that's what makes it valuable. So I showed that. That's actually from the most recent Pink Panthers, because the Pink Panther diamond doesn't actually figure in all of the films, even though the ones are named Pink Panther. The Pink Panther diamond's only mentioned in 6 of them, and only 2 of the movies have a plot that actually revolves around the Pink Panther.
Oh.
So over here on the right is the actual Pink Panther, right? So there was a Pink Panther, it still is a Pink Panther diamond. It was auctioned at Sotheby's for $83 million US, 59.6 carats.
Wow. And it is a pink diamond. I didn't know there's really such a thing, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. Then we have different wives because she knows all the diamonds.
That's a pink one. That's a black one. And here are all the different Clouseaus. And yeah, there's some in here that, you don't even know. Like Alan Arkin is, I knew he's in, I know he's in it, but a lot of people don't realize it. It's been kind of carried over the years.
Yeah.
Changed up.
Yeah, so one of these kids is doing his own thing.
Well, it's Roger
What
Moore. I don't. Yeah,
what in the actual what is happening there? I mean,
that movie's a whole movie's a mess, man.
Roger Moore is not funny. In
No.
that movie, he's not funny at all. At least everyone else has varying degrees of humor. Roger
Yeah.
Moore's terrible. Son of the Pink Panther is more of, it almost feels like a homage to the previous Peter Sellers films,
Right.
in that they're just showing clips and outtakes, and they took bloopers from the previous film, wrapped them all up and put it together. But I thought he's not supposed to be, Peter Sellers' character. He's supposed to be his son, although much of the cast from the original, what you consider the 4 canon films, do make appearances in that movie.
Yeah. And then let's talk about the character. Let's talk about the cartoon too, because this is, again, like you said, you think Pink Panther, you think of the movies, but for us, a lot of our generation really goes to the cartoons, because this is what we were spoon fed in the 70s and all through the 80s as well.
Yeah, so this was a for modern kids. I try to get my kids to watch this, and they thought this was terrible. And then I had to explain it. We only had like 3 working channels, so
Yeah, right. Yeah.
so it had no competition. I don't know what it was up against, like Cattle Report and some random other thing. So you're watching it, even though there wasn't any dialogue in it most of the time. Did you know this cartoon ran for 16 years?
I didn't know. Well, yes and no. I knew that it was on for a long time, because when I saw it, the cartoons looked older to me. So because I caught it when the Pink Panther show came on, which was like 1980, around there, 81, and I knew the cartoons were old, right? But I didn't know. What I didn't know was that these were shown in the theaters. Like, I don't remember ever seeing I don't remember seeing any of these in the theaters.
I don't either.
Yeah.
So I do know. So the first cartoon was in 1964, and it was about the time that the movie was coming out. But it was actually the popularity of the cartoon that motivated the directors after the second film.
Yeah.
The Pink Panther cartoons were still on the upswing. Decided, we're going to throw Pink Panther in the title so we get some cross-promotional marketing for what we're doing every Saturday.
Yeah.
But the first one ever done was called the Pink Fink. Yeah.
Pink, yeah.
Won an Oscar. Did you know that?
Yeah.
It won an Academy Award. What category is that?
I
didn't
know.
do a lot of research.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I think they have the record for winning an Oscar for a debut studio being stood up and winning an Oscar immediately after. This is the first thing they ever did, and they won an Oscar. No one's ever done that to this day.
Pixar didn't do that. It seems like, wasn't that Pixar's first thing? The little
ball,
thing with the
lamp.
Was it the lamp or yeah, it's the lamp, right?
Lamp was the first one, but I don't know. I'm sure they won something. Well, no, because they had other stuff too. They had I don't know if that won. I think they won later with the puppets or the Jack in the Box.
I thought they were sweeping that for
Keep talking,
years.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, you go. Yeah. So when I watched the Pink Panther, honestly, the only villain I remember seeing frequently was Little Man, the little white clear guy.
Yeah.
Didn't take a whole lot of effort on the part of the animators to put that together, but you just draw an egg and put a mustache on it. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and the inspiration came from Clouseau. They I don't know why they didn't just use Clouseau. That Clouseau character, I don't remember him in the cartoons. I remember him in the intro cartoons for the movies, but not in the actual Pink Panther cartoons that came out on Saturday mornings.
Yeah, interesting. Even his look was something else. I mean, they modeled Clouseau after Matthew Webb. Do you know who that is?
Mm-mm.
He's the first Englishman to cross the English Channel, right? So if you look at him, he looks exactly like Peter Sellers' character. He's on the back of a box of matches also, apparently. The
Adventures of Andre and Wally B was the first one they did, but they didn't win something for that.
Nice.
Yeah. So quickly on these cartoons, like the Ant and the Aardvark, or Aardvark and the Ant, I forget which way it goes. Those were on Saturday mornings. There was also the Inspector, which was they had the Inspector, which was they never called him Inspector Clouseau, but he was supposed to be Inspector, and he was not incompetent. He was actually fairly competent in the cartoon, and he ran around with this little French I think he was French or maybe he was like Spanish. His name was Dudu, and he had like a really thick Spanish accent. That was on Saturday mornings, and then there were a couple other ones, and we'll come back to the game here in a second. But here are the other ones. So there's in the bottom right hand corner. There's Clouseau or the inspector, and that was literally the name of the cartoon. That's Dudu right there, who he made fun of all the time. Over here is Mr. Jaw on the left hand side, and that was, I forget the catfish's name now. Dang it. But that was a big take around the time of like the late 70s. Jaws was out, right? And so they were literally just capitalizing on the fact that Jaws was out and made this cartoon, much like Jabberjaw came out. But this Great White had a top hat. He had a German accent, and they were always going around chasing Charlie, or Harry the Halibut, I think was his name. And that was like this little halibut fish in underwater. But the most offensive, egregious one that they did had to have been Tijuana Toads. And I remember this cartoon when it was out because I thought it was hilarious. They've since then, so it was real about these two frogs. They had really thick accents. Think of like Speedy Gonzalez and what was his buddy's name?
Slowpoke Rodriguez.
Yeah. So it was the
Have
same.
you met my cousin Speedy? La cucaracha. That's the best. Slowpoke is the best.
He is the best. And he's like you can't find him.
He's not offensive. You've been in Austin too long.
No, I'm not saying he's offensive. I'm saying it's hard to find some of that stuff because they pulled it all. Well, they took it to the nth degree on Tijuana Toads. They actually changed it to Texas Toads, and then they gave them like Texas accents. They went back and redid all the animation for it and pulled out all of the culturally potentially offensive things as well, just so they could air this cartoon on television. Now, again, it came out as Tijuana Toads when it was released in the theaters as shorts, but when they brought it over to the Pink Panther show in 1980, once it went to syndication, they had to go back and redo all that stuff because they didn't want to piss anybody off.
Wow.
Yeah. They're funny stuff. It's good stuff.
And I gotta find them.
They're very like, if you're a big fan of Looney Tunes, there are a lot of these cartoons in general are all just, I hate to say copycats, but they're lifts from some of the classic ones that were done in Looney Tunes, just with these new characters and slight takes. So you'll start watching it going, oh, I've seen a Looney Tunes a cartoon where they did this exact same thing, where they were in this exact same situation. So anyways, I don't know. Which one's bigger for you, the cartoons or the movies?
I'm going to go movies. Yeah, I never found the cartoons particularly funny. Like, I didn't know what they were supposed to be trying to be half the time,
Yeah,
right? And because they weren't talking, I got the attention span of like a 3-month-old mosquito. I can't focus on something where there's nothing happening. And the animation, I recall, and up here right now, you have some of the later work that they were doing. But the stuff we were watching and the time I was watching it was probably in the 70s, because by the 80s, there ain't no room for no Pink Panther cartoons.
Right.
We got way too many cartoon options.
Yep.
There was a window between, I'll say, 77 and 79 for Pink Panther cartoons to be in my wheelhouse. And even then, I didn't find them that interesting.
Yeah. Like by 83, forget about it. There was so much stuff that was coming out. And that we were consuming mass quantities of cereal at that point. All right. Well, let's move on from the Pink Panther. And let's see. What do we got next? Oh, we got this guy. So we've talked about Indiana Jones in a previous episode, but we've never really kind of dug into the character of Short Round. So I thought we just played like 5 minutes on this one. Hopefully we'll stick to 5 minutes. Let me give you the reference here. It says, Parzival, are we going to have an online romance? Fingers crossed. Artemis, no way, sorry. Parzival, why not? Artemis, no time for love, Dr. Jones. And you can't help but read that line and not think of, what's his name, Quan's voice or Short Round's voice whenever that line comes up. But obviously they're making reference to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which is a film that came out in 1984, the second of the Indiana Jones, well, I used to say trilogy, and it's not the case anymore. If you're a purist, then maybe. But so we did cover this in episode 5, episode 0005. And Short Round is played by Jonathan Quan. This was his first movie that he had ever done, really. And it's funny, he went into the casting thing with his brother, and his brother, I think, was the one that auditioned, and they ended up pulling him in to actually go and play the part of Short Round. And then that's how he was discovered. He went on to go do The Goonies, and after that, he didn't really do a whole lot, and he hasn't done that much. He's had little cameos here and there, but you think of this character, you think of Quan as a person, you think of the character he's done, and to me, it's always either Short Round or Data, and they're almost synonymous. Like I have this in my own like headcanon. At some point, Data came over to the U.S., never aged, and became, or sorry, Short Round came over to the U.S., never aged, and just became and lived the life of Data at that point. But I don't know. And so the one thing that I had here that I want to talk about with him is just the quotes from Short Round, because he has so many great quotes in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I've got a couple here. I'm not going to do, I won't do the voice because I'll probably be way more offensive than I should be. But he says, "Hang on, lady, we going for a ride. He no nuts, he crazy."
This is terrible.
Sorry, no.
I just want you to know, why did you pick this as the thing we were going to do if you can't do the voices?
I don't know.
And there's no way to do these voices without sounding offensive, because frankly, that's why they cast a small Vietnamese-born kid, right? Like that.
You call him Dr. Jones, doll. Feels like I step on fortune cookie. All right. So what were some of your? I think I've got most of them on here, but was there anything I missed?
But mine's actually the follow up to that line. That's no cookie. It's the follow up to that last line. Yeah. So, but you're right. He hasn't done anything. So, by 95, he was already making movies back in Taiwan and Hong Kong. But he speaks like 4 languages. He tried his luck at being a fight coordinator for a little bit, and actually did fight choreography as an assistant on a couple of films. But he does have 2 movies coming out at the end of this year, and one at the end of this year and one next year.
Really?
One was a Netflix movie coming out. Yeah, so those will be his first English movies in probably the last 20 years.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see more of him. On the Goonies, he's really good to listen to when you hear they do the audio commentary, and all of them. If you bought the Blu-ray version that came out recently, and I say recently, probably within the last 10 years, for whatever anniversary that was, they had brought all the actors on, and they are all doing a like a voiceover kind of thing, commentary. And he's one of the characters that definitely stands out. Him and Corey Feldman, for sure.
Nice.
One of your favorites.
Good times.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, short reference. We'll probably talk more about Indiana Jones as the novel progresses, and I want to do a bonus stage where we talked about the trilogy or all of the movies, I guess, at this point. So you got that to look forward to at some point as well. We are going to next talk about Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Boy. Now this one maybe had 2 references. So the obvious reference in this chapter says revenge is a dish best served cold, right? Everybody knows that line. It's pretty famous. But there's actually one that happens just before that. And I want you to you tell me if I'm crazy. Did I get this one?
You know how I'm going to do this. It's a 10-point scale, Albert. Go ahead and go with the lunacy. Give it to me.
All right, here's the lunacy. Earlier on, Artemis tells Parzival, "I am and always have been a human female. Have you ever met H in real life?" And the line that when I hear that, I think of the very ending of the movie, or towards the very end of the movie, when Spock is in the radiation chamber and he's closed himself out. He saved everybody, and he's got his hand up, and they're talking about it, and he says, "I have and I always will be your friend." Right? And he's never, at this point, really expressed himself to Kirk and all that, and that's kind of what really gets you in the feels when that happens on the movie. But what do you think? Did I get this right? Do you think he was going for that, or do you think it's just coincidence that line's there?
Ooh, I'm gonna give you a 6.3.
Oh.
Giving you a 6.3. I'm gonna say, yeah, I can buy that.
I'll take it.
But there's part of me that just wants to believe there's more Star Trek references in this book than there are probably.
Yeah, no, there really are quite a few of them. I've got a couple. It's going crazy here. I've got a couple of pictures up now of Star Trek. And so quickly, Star Trek was, this movie came out in 1982. It was directed by Nicholas Meyer and stars the cast from the TV show and Star Trek, the motion picture, as well as the taller guy from Fantasy Island. The synopsis from Internet Movie Database says, with the assistance of the Enterprise crew, Admiral Kirk must stop an old nemesis, Kahn Nguyen Singh, I probably said that wrong, from using the life-generating Genesis device as the ultimate weapon. Life-generating Genesis device as the ultimate weapon. That pretty much sums it up. I mean, there's obviously a lot more that happens in the movie. But what is your experience with Star Trek in general? Because this one, I don't remember, like I know you and Alex watched a lot of Star Trek Next Generation when it came on, like right after the news at 10:30, right? In San Antonio. But are you more of a Next Generation person? Do you like the original cast? Is there another cast later on? Do you like Star Trek in general? Like, where does it rank for you in terms of like sci-fi and all that? I really honestly don't know.
So I love Star Trek. So I like, and I think we've talked about this at least, and so you could probably glean my answer. So any science fiction that promulgates science fact, I am a huge fan of. And Gene Roddenberry's work and the vision that the writers had when they were putting together the show and the films directly contributed to the technology that's available today. Anyone who doesn't believe that there is a clear linkage between the art of writing, music, and filmmaking and the science of creation is far out. Someone has to envision that idea. And I think Star Wars did it to even a greater extent than even Star Wars did. Sorry, but I think you'd agree with that. There's more. Yeah, we don't have lightsabers, but we have communicators, right? So,
right.
So they're winning. I'm a huge Star Trek fan. Not as big as I am a Star Wars fan for sure, but this is my absolute favorite movie of all Star Treks. And I will put it above every episode. This is it. This is it. And it is nothing but one man, Ricardo Montalban. He, yes, as pause. You said, Kirk. I love it. Kirk, my old friend. Do you know the Klingon proverb that says revenge is a dish best served cold? This movie
You're fading in the Jack Palance a little bit, but go on.
Yeah, I did, because I think they're the same person, aren't they?
I think they are. Yeah, I think they are. Honestly.
No, just kidding. This is a highly quotable film. Like it, yeah, I would say it in singularity, it is probably for me one of the most quotable. I challenge you, Albert, now to think of a movie that's quote a singular movie in the sci-fi realm that's quoted more than Wrath of Khan.
Star Wars Episode 4.
Episode 4.
Close. I don't know. I depends on who you're talking to, but
yeah.
But no, you're right. This is by and large, if you ask a lot of Star Trek fans, this is the movie that they always say is the best one, and for a lot of great reasons. I mean, and I will say this: I don't think enough credit's given to Harvey Bennett, who's the writer of Wrath of Khan. Like, he had no idea. He didn't even know what Star Trek. I mean, he was familiar with Star Trek. I'm not saying he didn't, right? But he wasn't a huge Star Trek fan. He wasn't a Trekkie. He didn't have the background, and he was brought in because they wanted to shake things up, right? Paramount was like, we need to start. We just came off the motion picture. They asked Bennett at one point, "What did you think of the motion picture movie?" And he was like, "It was boring." He's like, "Exactly. We want you to change that. Can you do it?" And he's like, "Yeah, of course I can do it." And he's like, "Fine, you got the job." I mean, there's plenty of stories out there that talk about that's literally how it went down. And then he was tasked with coming up with a sequel to the motion picture, and he went back and watched all 79 episodes.
79 episodes.
Right, of the original ones. And the episode that stood out was Space Seed, which is the precursor to this. And so from that, he built this amazing story that has a lot of different things this was the first movie for me, like, Star Trek became real, and not for the movies. The motion picture was, I think it was Alan Dean Foster that did the story, which I really like. I mean, I think he does a lot of great stuff, but it was kind of, there wasn't a lot of human elements to it, right? In this one, there's death, there's suicide, there's, the relationship between Spock and Kirk. I mean, he took a lot of what was culminating over the course of the last movie and the number of years that the series was on, the 79 episodes that were out there, and fed a lot of it into this, and there was a big payoff for you at the very end, and then especially how bold was it to kill off, and I'm using air quotes again, but kill off Spock, who was at this point one of the bigger characters, one of the more beloved characters of the cast themselves.
Yeah, and I think the other part of it is it's one of the first films in this era, even looking at Star Wars, where the villain, Kahn, he's not really a villain. He wasn't a villain in Space Seed. He was just a victim of where he was at, and that's what happened. And the same thing happens in Wrath of Khan here. And I think this was one of the first films I can remember where it was like, you're a bit conflicted because it's not a black and white, good and bad. There's a gray that Khan's in my opinion, as to what he's going to do and what motivates him to act. And I think Ricardo Montalban's actually said in several interviews that's what motivated him to take the role, right? Because he was still full on doing his thing, Fantasy Island style, when they told him to come back and knock this role out.
Right. He didn't have to use that. I mean, he was hitting a high with that
Yeah.
Fantasy Island show.
Yeah, he didn't have to do all those push-ups to get that chest all crunk.
Okay, let's talk about that, because I recall, at least in the 80s and most of the 90s, this was a big point of contention. Like, people would joke about it, whether or not that was real. You still have people to this day that it's kind of like, we never landed on the moon. That was all fake. He never really had that chest. It's just a plastic piece that was there. And you've got the director, Nicholas Meyer, who says he's kind of, I think he's put this to rest and said that is truly his chest, because I think he was, how old? 62? How old was he when he did this? He was pretty old.
I don't know.
He was pretty old, but at 62 years old, that was his chest.
I do know that from Space Seed to the filming of Wrath of Khan, by the time the episode aired to the time that this movie came out, was exactly 15 years. So it was 15 years in real time and 15 years in movie time.
Oh, nice.
So they did that really well. I don't know. I think it's real. You know, he addressed it. Ricardo addressed it on Johnny Carson directly in '82 and said, "Nah, man, that's all me, bro.
All natural.
Come touch it." He didn't say that.
Come touch it. That's pretty gross. I've got a picture of the. I think that's the VHS there. Another version of the VHS, or maybe that's like a movie poster, and then that's the Laserdisc version of it. It's got some, and this screams the '80s. That and this logo right here. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Talk about '80s coloring and stuff. It looks beautiful. Here's some of the more memorable scenes. And there's a lot of them in here, and I honestly didn't get a chance to put all of them in here. But there's the moment in top left-hand corner. I'm showing the scene between Spock and Kirk, where he gives them the peace sign. He gives them the Vulcan symbol. You can revoke my Star Trek card. It's fine. I don't need it. It's the other one that
you
I
know
hold
how they're
dear to
doing
my-
the peace sign. I think I'm gonna have to remove your civil rights card.
U.S. citizenship. And then the bottom right hand corner is just them, and I put that in here for a very specific reason, because there is a character in here. So Judson Scott is the actor. In the bottom right hand corner, you can see him there. I think he has a lot of lines in the movie. He's actually not credited. He plays a character named Joe Chim or something like that, right? And what I remember him from is the TV series called The Phoenix. Have you ever seen this thing?
Yes.
Okay,
Beastmaster ripoff.
It is. It's not. It's not Beastmaster. I mean, yeah, he's got his chest out and he looks like him. But
easy.
This series, if we ever
I know
get a chance,
I know what's attracting you to this guy. You've got to type clearly.
Bare chested. No,
you got to be into animals. I want shoulder length blonde hair.
The show as a kid, so 82. Let's see, I was pushing like 10 years old at this point. But we watched the premiere of this, and man, I was all in on this show. Like, I thought this was going to be my show. This is great. I love this character. And they did I think 6 more episodes, and they got canceled in the first season and never made it. And I think they actually wrote the next 6. I think they have 12 episodes that were written. Only the first 6 came out, but that's him. This is one of the only big things that he had done, which was Star Trek. So.
Yeah,
probably not true, but
movies or TV shows that were coming and going. I remember I was all into Automan when it came out. I was like, I'm all in, and then
it's gone.
It's gone.
Not gonna make it.
One of the reasons he's not credited in this scene is virtually all the actors that are supporting Ricardo as part of, I forgot what they're calling that race. They recruited them all out of a single Chippendales club. They
really?
Yeah.
Nice.
That's why when you said, hey, you know where I recognize him from? I'm like, hey, calm down.
Chippendales. Dad used to take me there when we were
the calendar, 1980. Mr. November.
All right. I've got more memorable moments here. This is in the top left. We've got Spock transferring all his memories and whatever into McCoy's and saying, remember. There's Kirstie Alley. I think this is her first appearance. Wasn't it her first movie?
Is it?
I think so. I don't think she had been anything in.
I know it's the first appearance of the Tunics.
Yeah. The Tunics, yeah. There's Spock's coffin, I guess. I don't know what they call that officially. And then I did include this in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm showing a picture of James Halliday from the Ready Player One movie, because they did use that. They obviously diverged from the novel, but they used the same coffin there. That was Spock's coffin. And I actually had one with the flag on there, the Federation symbol, but I didn't include that in there. And then the other thing that stood out for me is I think this is one of the first movies, and we talked about this when we did the Tron episode. We were talking about Tron and which movie is credited as the first movie to have like CGI Silicon graphics in it. And that Tron and this movie came out within months of each other. And so I don't think there's an official declaration of, yep, they were the first, though depending on who you talk to and which camp you're in, people will say it's this scene here where the Genesis is showing like the death of the planet and then the rebirth of it, or they'll go back to Tron and say that was the first time that was used like that.
Yeah, if you ask me, it's Tron, right? Like I know there's some debate out there, but I believe it is Tron. That being said, this to me, amongst all the impressive things in the film, this is the scene as a child I remember watching saying, what in the actual, it was.
What am I looking at here?
Yeah, it blew my mind.
Yep, I would agree. That's him screaming Kahn. This is my favorite moment, and I use this GIF all the time. Well, not this one. I've got a better one that I couldn't pull out in time, but I have one that I went and created. I slowed it down. I added my own text. I put shadow behind the text, and I use it in Discord a lot, but I do like this scene where he yells, Kahn.
Mine is virtually any line Ricardo Montalban says in this movie. Every one of them is freaking outstanding. I mean, he kills it. Every piece of literature you can imagine is thrown into that mix. When I'm an old man, Albert, I just want you to know that's how I'm going to talk.
You're going to
just dropping random
quotes.
Well, not Ricardo. I mean, like him, not lines from the movie.
I think you should go all in with lines from the movie. Just do it. I think that'd be great.
I just want you to know it will be a chest plate.
It's going to be fake. Here's all the movies, and I was going to ask this question, but you kind of blew it there. But which was your favorite?
Sorry, spoiler alert. Some of these are terrible.
Yeah, they are. Some of them are kind of bad, but I don't. Star Trek 2 is definitely up there. I do like First Contact. That was I think it's one of my favorites simply because it was the first time seeing the new cast on their own, not as part of the Generations thing that they were trying to do, which I do like that they tried to do that. I thought it was a nice kind of handing of the baton officially in movie format. Didn't really plan out the way they wanted it. I don't think it played out the way they wanted it to go.
Yeah, interesting. I like the show. I like the show Next Generation better than the original Star Trek, although I like that too. But I markedly prefer the Next Generation. I thought it was more cerebral. I thought the characters are far more developed. But I don't like any of the Next Gen movies and prefer all of the movies that are done by the original, with the exception of the what is it? Is it The Quest for Peace? What's the one? No, that's Superman. What's the one with the dolphins or the blue whales?
Oh, that's my third favorite. That's Voyage Home.
That's your third favorite movie?
Star Trek movie, yeah.
You know why? Because you worked at SeaWorld?
Yeah, no. That's probably a good reason. No, I think there's great moments in there, like when it's more about Spock when he because it takes, they go back to the 80s and they're trying to adjust to that culture. Like it's the whole stranger in a strange land thing, but it's the whole cast. And they got what's his name trying to get the computers to come on. He's like, computer, and
I'll give you that.
There's that one, and then Spock is wearing a headband at one point, and then he learns the word "damn," and he thinks that you just say that whenever you need to. And he's like, Spock, how many minutes do we have? It's like a really critical moment in the movie at the very end. He's like, how many minutes before whatever? And he goes, one damn minute, Admiral. And it's just so out of character for Spock. And he's like, he's still learning, right? He's still gathering his feet and trying to understand what life is like now that he's been reincarnated or reborn or whatever. But you should go back and watch it. I think it's held up well.
Okay, I'm gonna watch it. Is that the one where he's climbing rocks and stuff? Is that
at the very beginning? That's the very, very beginning. He's doing
got the space boots. Somebody comes up there.
Yeah, and then those come out a little bit later. They help them when they need to go up one of the turbo lifts that's no longer operating. Mm-hmm. He picks up McCoy and Spock, I think, together, and all three of them are going up with the space boot or the rocket boots. Go watch it again.
It's a deal. I'll watch it again. I'll watch it again.
It's worth it. Look at JR says it's awesome too. So that should be reason enough.
Done.
All right. We're going to get a little dark now. A little darker. This is Silence of the Lambs. It was a movie that came out in 1991. Crazy, awesome movie, first off. Sorry. It's just so it's so great. Can't say enough about it. 1991, directed by Jonathan Demme. Is it Demme or Demi? Demi, yeah. It stars Jodie Foster as Clarice Sterling, Hannibal Lecter as Hannibal Lecter, Ted Levine as Buffalo Bill, and Scott Glenn as Jack Crawford. I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of give us a quick synopsis of it and then just take us right into it.
Cool. So Buffalo Bill, a guy identifying as a girl, decides he hates his complexion. So he decides he's going to create a woman's suit out of human skin. While shopping for this skin, this avid dog lover grabs a senator's daughter. Clarice Starling, an aspiring FBI agent with a terrible West Virginian accent, is sent to find it. He learns that Hannibal Lecter, a former shrink and a purveyor of human flesh, knows who it is. Together, he provides a trail of moths to Buffalo Bill and a hole containing seemingly a victim, a dog, and a bottle of lotion. That's what I'm going with, Albert.
Okay. That's the movie. You no longer have to watch it. Just spoiled the whole thing.
There's way more to this film. I mean, this is a master class in character development, in the conversion of a book into a film. And while it certainly doesn't capture all the essence of the book as it was written by Thomas Harris, it's still an excellent representation of the text. So many little Easter eggs. I think this movie was out for years, Albert, before I noticed that it had this Salvador Dali reference on the back of the death head moth. Did you know that when the movie came out?
Oh no, heck no. I mean, I see the face and that was all it. I'd never.
Yeah, I thought I saw a skull and I was like, oh, that's scary.
Yep.
I didn't realize. I don't know that I knew that until our brother, who is a brilliant artist in his own right. He's a huge Salvador Dali fan.
Yeah.
And this was on one of the texts that he just has hundreds of books laying around. I think that's the first time I saw it.
Yep. And let me give you the reference because again I skipped over it, but it says Parzival, I refuse to answer any more questions until you start reciprocating. Artemis, fine. Quid pro quo, Dr. Lecter. We'll take turns asking questions. Go ahead. Which is a direct lift from the movie. There's obviously moments in there where Hannibal Lecter and Clarice are going back and forth. He's trying to get information from her. She's trying to get information from him. One has nefarious plans with that information. The other does not, I guess. But that is what they're kind of going back and forth. And I think there's another line. I don't think I include all of them because I think it comes up a little bit later. But this one, I never read the book, and I to this day have never read the book. I'm not a big thriller book, horror book. I don't do any of that stuff. I'm mostly stick to science fiction and fantasy. Shocker. Go ahead and typecast me. But I don't really get into a lot of that stuff. But I always wondered, and maybe if you have, or did you find out as part of your research, how accurate was it to the book, and was it favorable? Was the translation favorable? In either direction, I guess.
I would say absolutely. I think the biggest differences between the books, and these are nuanced differences. Some of the differences that people complain about between the book and the movie have to deal with the complaints people have about all conversions of books into the movie, which is that you lose some introspection, that the characters aren't as developed as they are in the book, and you don't get into this intimate, all of those issues are just a matter of timing.
Right.
But I would say in terms of the character, Hannibal Lecter is perfectly represented. Jodie Foster does a fantastic job with Clarice Starling, but she's far wide-eyed and doughy, in the movie as opposed to the book, where she is determined, right? There's a lot more conversation in the book about how she's progressing through the FBI Academy, and it's really affecting her grades being part of this. And there's parts of it that almost have that Harry Potter-esque feel where it's like, oh, should I be doing this because I'm not focusing on my studies? So there's that piece. There is also in the book far more heavier nods to the LGBTQ plus community. The transgender issues are talked about far more explicitly in the book. Buffalo Bill's character, it actually leads them at one point to go look for people who have had gender reassignment surgery, those kind of things. Also, all the mentions of Hannibal Lecter's sister, who she doesn't make mention in any of the movies, I think, but she plays a significant role in the books. In that Clarice Starling is actually just being put into her role in
in the movie
Hannibal Lecter's life.
Okay.
In Hannibal Lecter's, she's not playing that role. What I'm saying is in the book there's a Clarice Starling, right?
Yeah.
and Hannibal Lecter lost his sister at a younger age, who he was in love with, and so Clarice Starling is filling that void in the books.
Oh, I get what you're
but
saying.
they removed her from the movie.
Right.
And so,
but that still comes across. Like you get the vibe that he is creeping on her a little bit.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right? Throughout all of it, I guess I should say. But
yeah, this is to your point, this is a great film. If you've never seen it, push pause on this podcast and go do that right now, and then come back, because it's worth it.
Yeah. The pacing's great. The suspense is great. It never comes off too, like, it's not like gory violence. It really messes with your head. And in credit to Anthony Hopkins for his portrayal. And I said it's Hannibal Lecter, but I had this question out there, like, are these their definitive roles for their careers? Like when we look back at somebody like it's probably for Jodie Foster, she's done a lot, and so has Anthony Hopkins. I mean, I'm kind of playing around here a little bit, but it's hard to argue that these aren't two roles that surface to the very top, if not the top, for both of them in their acting careers.
Right. I mean, this is a film that won 5 Academy Awards. It won Best Picture. It won Best Actor and Best Actress, which rarely happens.
Yes.
Right. Remember what the other technical awards were. Adapted screenplay was one for sure for the novel, and then this did this one for Best Director? Yeah, Best Director as well. So what's interesting to me is that everyone remembers Hannibal Lecter's role in this film, and he justifiably won the Best Actor Oscar for.
Yeah.
But he was on screen less than 24 minutes and 30 seconds.
Wow.
The second lowest screen time for an actor who won the Oscar for Best Actor in a film. That's crazy to me.
That is crazy.
Because
I didn't realize that.
It seems like he's in the entire movie to me.
Yes.
But apparently he's just there the whole time. They had a really unique way of cutting this film, in that anytime that Lecter was talking to Clarice, and I never thought about this until I was listening to the director commentary. Anytime that Lecter was talking to Clarice, the shot was always audience POV of Clarice, which was supposed to make it creepier.
Yeah.
So
because he's peering in, like,
he's looking at us.
Shark, soulless eyes, like they call, from Jaws, right? Those black soulless eyes is what you see when you see Hannibal Lecter looking at you.
Yep. In fact, although Clarice is much different in the book, she still has a lot of the feminine or feminist championing strengths that you would expect. In fact, AFI lists their top 100 heroes of all time. She's the highest ranking female on the list at number 6. Really? 2 ahead of Sigourney Weaver in Alien.
Yeah, she's always the one that comes up for me. And Sigourney Weaver takes it in terms of like sci-fi. But yeah, I should consider her more, and I don't to this day, but I should.
She was actually the inspiration for the creation of Dana Scully in the X-Files.
That makes absolute sense, because there's moments where it's almost like a carbon copy that Gillian Anderson lifts that off there from that movie. Yeah. What are we looking at here? I mean,
all right. So I thought we'd play a little game. So first of all, no, we're not going to play a game. I just want to know your thoughts on it. Have you seen the original Manhunter?
Nope. I've heard about it, and I want to say I've heard good things about it, but no, I've never seen it.
Okay, so you've got Manhunter and Red Dragon. Both of them are adaptations of Red Dragon.
Red Dragon, yeah.
Right. So what I did was I've got to your right the 4 Thomas Harris novels that make up the stories of Hannibal Lecter, and below them I speak to what year they came out. And then in tiny little font, I show you what year the movies came out. So the first movie that came out was actually Manhunter. It was the first movie to have Hannibal Lecter in it. So it's the telling of Red Dragon. It's also the only movie where Hannibal Lecter never leaves his prison cell. So what's interesting is when Manhunter came out, to me anyway, when Manhunter came out, Anthony Hopkins was playing King Lear, right, in the National Theatre in London, right?
Yep.
And in Manhunter, the role of Hannibal Lecter is played by Brian Cox. You probably know Brian Cox.
Absolutely.
Right? So Brian Cox plays that role. 5 years later, when Silence of the Lambs comes out, and Sir Anthony Hopkins is playing Hannibal Lecter.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Cox is at the National Theater playing King Lear, right?
Yeah.
And so Brian Cox has like the worst luck ever. So he plays Hannibal Lecter. 5 years later, somebody else plays him and wins the Oscar. The same thing happens to him later. In 2017, he plays Churchill in Churchill. 3 years later, Gary Oldman plays a role and wins the Oscar for it.
Yeah.
Brian Cox, you're terrible. Yep. Terrible guy. Oh, so we can't talk too much about this because you haven't seen Manhunter, but it's a great film. It's a different type of film. In my opinion, it is far better than Red Dragon, right? Huh. Mainly because have you seen Red Dragon?
I have. It's not up there with like in terms of like Silence of the Lambs, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was fine, and I get where people had problems with it from just from a pure movie perspective, pacing and some of that stuff. But
yeah, pacing and writing is bad, and this is it's good source material. And right. Red Dragon is actually as good source material as Silence of the Lambs is. So Red Dragon is, each one of these Thomas Harris novels circles around a character, even though they're held together by Hannibal. The last two centering around Hannibal, but neither of these two films are actually about Hannibal Lecter. But this is, to me, at the time that Red Dragon came out, was an all-star cast.
Mm-hmm.
Fiennes is a phenomenal actor.
Yep.
Ed Norton, I know we both love.
Yep.
I thought Ed Norton was going to be the next Jack Nicholson. When I saw him in what was a courtroom drama with Richard Gere.
Yeah. Keep going. I'll look it up. But yeah, that was his breakout role.
Man,
amazing in it.
That was. I remember. I think we were still in high school when that came out, and then I was like, "Oh, I'm not going to be an actor. That guy's way better than I'll ever be."
So it wasn't Time to Kill. That's not the right one.
No. It's like
Primal Fear.
Primal Fear. There you go. I'm surprised JR didn't get that faster. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I was going to describe to you the difference between these two films, but you haven't seen them, so you're going to have to watch those films, and then we'll talk about them in a later episode. I'm sure there's going to be another Silence of the Lambs reference.
Yeah, probably not. But I want to talk about what the heck is this? Like, where did you find this?
So,
what is it?
Have you ever been to the YouTube channel Cineflix? All right.
I'm sure I passed by it or have gone to it. But
they don't pay me, but their stuff is awesome. And a lot of this is older, including this. What they do is they'll take movies and then they'll convert them to 8-bit, and then they'll make them look like they're video games. And so they'll be like, some are 20 minutes long. So this is basically like a 7-minute retelling of Silence of the Lambs, as if you were watching someone play Silence of the Lambs, the video game.
Nice.
And it is so well done. And I mean, this engine that they use for this one feels very Metal Gear, like the original Metal Gear.
Yeah.
Not Snake's Revenge, the original. But the not to get too nerdy, but I was just gonna ask you, you've never seen this?
I've been this. I saw you say that. I know what website you're talking about, and I've seen other movies that they've converted. I want to say they did a Ready Player One as
really?
Well. Yeah, or someone has. If it's not them, someone did do a Ready Player One. If it were an 8-bit video game, and there's also a video by Gunship, which is like a synth band. Gunship did a video where they took they have a song called Artemis and Parzival. And then they took 8-bit cartoons and stuff, and they put it to the back or in the backdrops and all that. So it's a video basically about Ready Player One. But anyways, sorry.
Yeah, they do a lot of Easter eggs in their video too. So if you watch it, you're expecting your audience has already seen the film when you're watching these little videos. You'll probably get a general idea of what Silence of the Lambs is about because it covers all the highlights. Yeah. But there are hundreds of little Easter eggs that are thrown out.
That's awesome. I like the text, the font too. It looks like it's something like Final Fantasy, like the original Final Fantasy text.
Oh yeah, it does.
Interesting. Okay, well, go see that movie. We can't recommend it enough. It'll blow your mind if you've never seen it before. It's certainly worth looking at. And the next reference is again, it's Highlander. We've talked a lot about Highlander. I just threw it up here quickly. The reference though says, Parzival says, okay,
no, it's Parsiburg.
Okay, what's your favorite movie of all time? Artemis, it changes. Right now, probably Highlander. Parzival, you've got great taste, lady. And we were talking about this before we came on the air. Like, it would be interesting to see how many, like, what pop culture reference is mentioned the most, whether directly or indirectly in the Ready Player One novel. My money's on either going to be Highlander or Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Like those two come up a lot, and there's a lot of different references. But again, this is probably the fifth or sixth time we've actually talked about Highlander on the show, so we're not going to do that. But I thought I'd put it up so we can at least see it. So there it is. Okay, moving on. Here's another one.
Just for reference, there's only 4 direct nods to that.
To Highlander?
To Highlander, where Highlander is explicitly said. That doesn't count all the dozens of indirect references that are out there.
Yep. Yeah, there's quite a few of them. This next reference here is a Goonies reference, and we talked about Goonies. The reference says, Artemis and I even teamed up for a few quests. We visited the planet Goondocks and finished the entire Goonies quest in just one day. Artie played through it as Martha Plimpton's character, Steph, while I played as Mikey, Sean Astin's character. It was entirely too much fun. So they actually, again, when they were doing their dating, they went out and did the Goonies thing on Goondocks. And we covered the Goonies in a Richard Donner episode where we took like the films of Richard Donner set in the 80s at least, and kind of broke each one of those down. So we did do that one already, but I thought it'd be worth at least to put up the characters themselves. So there's Steph and there's Mikey. So that's what they would have looked like in that flick sync.
Hey, Mikey, gotta go to the bathroom.
Is that the wrong movie? Is that
no? That's like that. No.
Is it?
That's a mouth. He's got like the two.
Oh, that's right. He's doing a Stallone voice though.
Hey, Mikey, you gotta go to the bathroom.
All right. The next one is another. So we've already talked about this one a lot. And
did you?
Yes, we've already talked about it. Yeah, we talked about it in episode 6. Jonesy and I did this one. But it's my favorite, like one of my top all-time favorite shows as a kid. Not yours. And it was one of my
I'm leaving.
I love this show so much that I had to like not only include it again, but then I named the freaking episode after it just because
do you know how many cool references we had in this episode? And you went with it when you sent me the show notes and said the Space Giants. I'm like, come on, man.
Because you weren't going to let me. You wouldn't let me do this. I know.
No way. There's like 4 people that even know what this is.
That's not true. That is not true. Space Giants is out there. They're relevant. So we won't spend a lot of time, honestly. Don't worry. But I'm going to hit play while we're talking here because I do have the intro.
Research.
Research on the fly. All right, so this is the Space Giants, and the reference is for a while. Oh, I got to do this, otherwise it doesn't play. For a while, I thought that the whistle in the third line might be a reference to a late 60s Japanese TV show called The Space Giants, which had been dubbed in English and rebroadcast in the United States in the 70s and 80s. So this is the Space Giants. It's a series that came out in 1966. There were, it ran from 1966 to 1967. They did 52 episodes. So they like crammed all these episodes into a short amount of time and released them. And that's all you got. It originally aired on Fuji TV. It was later brought into, when he talks about it came in the 70s and 80s, it actually made its way out into TBS's The Superstation. So the Superstation, and again, I've kind of talked a little bit about this, so excuse me if I'm repeating myself, but in the 70s, when cable television came out, there were only a few channels that you got on cable, right? It's very similar to, like, anytime a new channel comes out, there's only so many shows that come out on it. But the Superstation was one of them. And there was all kinds of Superstation, or all kinds of crazy stuff from Japan and stuff coming over from Hong Kong. And they were pulling things that were being shown from other countries. And it was all just thrown on here. It was amazing. I can't describe how awesome it was coming off of having only 3 primary channels in PBS and then having something like the Superstation, which would show you these shows that you'd never seen before, like Hong Kong, Kung Fu Theater was born here, right? Wrestling suddenly was on the air, right? Just lots and lots of great stuff. But this was one of the shows that came out, and it came out in the afternoon. So my routine was I got out of elementary school. I literally would run home as fast as I could because by the time I walked in that door, the Space Giants was starting. So I had a goal to get home on time just to get the TV turned on and get the channel flipped over to the Superstation so I could watch the Space Giants. So originally, this is based on it's actually really based on a cartoon called Ambassador Magma. and it was a famous cartoon that they were doing anime or not anime. What do you call it? What do you call the graphic novels? Yeah, that.
What?
Drawing a
Manga?
blank. Manga. Thank you. It was originally just manga, right? And then they decided they were going to do a TV show, and they were going to do an animated version of this. Well, long story short, production costs were too high. They really couldn't do it, and so they kept a lot of the animation and just overlaid that into the show itself. The premise: you've got three robots, Goldar, Silvar, and Gam. They're like from another. They live in a volcano. This sounds absurd, I know. They live in a volcano. There's an old man that's kind of wise and kind of leads them in their ventures. But they're basically defending Earth from Rodak. And Rodak is this alien villain that's out there. He's bringing these giant, like, dinosaur monsters from different planets, and he's bringing them down to Earth and wanting to destroy Earth. And the only goal he has, that I recall anyways, is he wants all of this to be televised. And so... and again, you think about the time, right? Television was really starting to take off and all that. Maybe that was the inspiration. But the way this would so now that the video's played over, I'm going to go here. So I've got some of the stuff here. So top left-hand corner, you can see that's Rodak in the far right-hand side. There's Goldar. All three of these guys here, Goldar, Silvar, and Gam, the boy, they could all turn into robots. Or they were robots.
They were robots.
And then they would turn into spaceships, right? And there was actually a transforming sound that sounds, if you listen to it, it sounds very similar to what Hasbro used when I should say Hasbro, when Hasbro brought over the Transformers, they use a transforming sound that we all know and are familiar with. It's similar to the sound that you hear whenever they transform to robot and over to aircraft. But the reference, to bring it back to the reference in the novel, in the bottom left-hand corner, this is the little boy here. I forget, is it Tommy? Is his name? No, I'm forgetting his name. But he would blow this whistle that's here in the middle down here. This whistle would hang around his neck. And so whenever he would blow that, he had to blow it 3 times. And if he blew that whistle 3 times, he would summon Goldar from pretty much anywhere, wherever he was, whether he was in the volcano, which was their home base, or flying around doing whatever he was doing. He would use that whistle to summon Goldar. And then he would tell Goldar, hey, something's going wrong. You need to save us. And then Goldar would take off and, fight Rodak or whatever.
But only if he needed Goldar, right? So 1 whistle blow got the kid.
Yeah.
2 got the chick, and 3 got Goldar.
Yeah.
And what was her name? Silvar?
Silvar was her name. It was Mole or Maul or something like that in the Japanese version.
In the Japanese version, yeah. They had much cooler names than the Japanese version.
Yeah, it was Magma, Mole, Gam, and Boa or Goa?
Oh, I thought you were talking about the other dude. I thought his name was Earth.
No, Rodak is Goa. I don't remember the old dude's name in the Japanese.
I think it's Earth. Wasn't it
is
Earth?
it? Maybe.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. So, yeah.
Hey, you didn't know I knew that. I did some homework.
Well, tell me.
I watched this show.
You said you saw this show at some point, and I got really excited, and then you told me and then you clarified it for me, and I wasn't excited no longer.
Yes. So I think a lot of Superstation shows like this. I was actually in Spain at the time growing up, and when I was a kid, Armed Forces Network would show U.S. television, and this was one of the shows they would show. And at the time, it was amazing. There was robot fights. It was my generation's Power Rangers, basically.
Yeah.
That was the plot. Exactly the plot. I don't think there's a lot that changed other than that kid got a whistle.
For the most part, yeah. And they had and to kind of like Power Rangers, and I don't have a picture of them up here. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. There were these like alien creatures that served Rodak.
Oh, that's right. And
they would run around, and they called it Lupin or Lumen, I think.
Yeah,
or something like that.
Something like that.
And they would go around, and they were his henchmen. And the really cool thing is, every time they die, they would fall into this puddle of goo, which I thought was really cool as a kid. Like, wow, they would like melt every single time. But yeah, I don't have a picture of them, but they were in the show as well.
So, Albert, what you're telling me is that this show today, it holds up.
For nostalgia reasons, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I made Jonesy watch like my 3 favorite episodes back when we did this in for episode 6.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, he didn't like them.
No, this does not hold up at all. It can't be in your top 10. Although I got to give it to you. I did do a little research, And so the most viewed video under the category the Space Giants is the last episode of the American version, and it has had 893,000 views. That means, but it was posted 13 years ago. Still, it means that every day for the last 13 years, if you were just to take a cumulative average, 194 people clicked, yes, I want to watch that.
If you, I'm gonna tell you right now, a lot of those are probably me, so it kind of skews the numbers a little bit. We've got a YouTube channel out there, and we haven't done much of it. Will and I have talked about doing something at some point and maturing that in some way, and just never had. Like my vision of the YouTube channel would be something like their own TVs, like how Artemis had her channel and Parzival had his channel. That was the vision at some point. But as far as I got, there are some things up there. But if you do go, I think I at least have a Space Giants channel. Like it was one of the first things I ever did on the YouTube channel when I set it up for the basement. And I think I have a list. It used to be like a playlist of every single one of the episodes if anybody wanted to watch these. So it's out there.
There's no reason for that, people. Save yourselves.
This show, again, it just brings back so many memories. This was my favorite show. I absolutely love this thing to death. And it's so corny. It's so cheesy. The acting's horrible. The music is like a lot of horns and like military sound, like marching music, and I don't know. It's great stuff.
Yeah, I was recently in a home that didn't have an air conditioner. It reminded me a lot of when I was a kid. I don't want to go back.
I don't want to go back. Fair point. All right. Well, if you haven't had a chance, you can listen to episode 6. We get into a lot more of the production and all of that as well. And certainly if this is of interest,
I can only imagine what Jonesy was saying when he was watching that.
He didn't like it at all. All right, let's get on to the next reference here. So we're going to talk about John Draper, and the reference here says Halliday was alluding to a famous 70s hacker named John Draper, best known as the alias Captain Crunch. Draper was one of the first phone freaks, and he was famous for discovering that the toy plastic whistles found as prizes in boxes of Captain Crunch cereal could be used to make free long-distance phone calls because they emitted a 2600 hertz tone that tricked the old analog phone system into giving you free access to the line. Now, there's a couple references. So the Captain Crunch reference, we're going to defer that because when we get to Zork and he's in the kitchen and he's opening the cupboards and all of the cereals are in there, we're going to talk about that and a whole bunch of other cereals with that. So we'll defer that one. That'll come in chapter 23. But John Draper, so he was born 1943. He's still alive to this day. And he was basically, I think he does a pretty good job of giving you a high level of why he's important, but he is known as one of the original hackers, right? And we did talk about him in I think it was episode 11, we were talking about War Games. He was brought on to the set of War Games and was used as a consultant through that movie whenever they were trying to talk about hacking and all of that. But his career is interesting. He started in the Air Force. He was enlisted in the Air Force. He was from 1964 to 1968 as an engineer. He came out of the Air Force and used a lot of the technology that he picked up on phones and phone systems and just started experimenting. And by experimenting, eventually led over into hacking. And if you think about it, and there's so many stories out there. He's done a lot of interviews. He's a very interesting character. Let's just say that. Sometimes he comes across as very cocky. Sometimes he comes across as arrogant, sometimes a jerk. And then sometimes he's okay. I don't know. He's just like varying degrees of emotions with him. But I will say this. Like his idea or what he did in what he was doing with phones is very similar. Like if you think about it, back in the late 60s, early 70s, personal computers weren't a thing, right? There were computers. I'm not saying there weren't, but there was no personal computer. You didn't have something at home that you could go hack into unless you had a crap ton of money, right? But phones were the computers back then. And there's plenty of interviews out there where he talks about it. Phones were widely available. There was a lot of stuff that was happening in the background that we all just took for granted and says it works. He was more interested in tinkering with these things and trying to figure out how they worked and could they be manipulated? Could they be hacked? And so you think about it, a phone was really just a computer, right? Back then, because it was widely available and it was readily available and it was something that had a lot of moving parts, and it certainly it piqued a lot of interest for a lot of different people. And by going in and hacking these things, they coined the term freaks, right? So these phone freaks were freaking a phone. They were freaking the phone, meaning they were hacking the phone. I guess before the term came out as hacking. And so that's where it all kind of and there's a lot of stuff. I mean, this guy got arrested in 80 or 72 after Esquire had done an article on him talking about how he was a phone freak. The FBI came in, they arrested him, they threw him in a prison for a number of years. He was in Lone Pack, a federal prison. And I'll get your thoughts on this, but one last thing I want to say about that prison, right? The time that he spent in prison, he was so vindictive and so mad that they had locked him up for what he had done. Because of course, in his mind, he wasn't doing anything that was wrong. That he actually says that he went out and trained and taught 200 to 300 people while he was in prison. They would go to the prison phones and he would show people there, like, here's how you can do this and here's how this works. And he was teaching all these people because he wanted them. He was trying to breed, when those people got out, these new hackers that would go out there. And so to his own credit, he says he trained thousands of other hackers, and hacking wouldn't be as big as it was, at that time, because he was locked up and, they gave him the opportunity to kind of do all of that. But what is this somebody that, I didn't even really know about who he was, to be honest, until way later. Like, even in the 80s, I wasn't familiar with who he was. Even though I was in tinkering and trying to do stuff with computers and doing stuff, illegal stuff, I didn't know who John Draper was, honestly.
Right. So, yeah, I think what's interesting is that John Draper kind of hangs in the shadows, but rolled in the same circles as everybody else that people would look at as pioneers in Silicon Valley. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, was good personal friends and continues to be personal friends with him to this day. Those are the names. Yeah. In fact, Steve Jobs is quoted as saying, Apple would not exist had it not been for Draper. So if you look at what Draper was trying to do, and I get that, I think the line between what was legal and what was illegal was far different back then. Like, he might have thought ethically and morally there was nothing wrong with what he was doing. Legally, there wasn't really a violation other than the theft of phone calls. That was the only thing they really got him on, but that's not what he was trying to do. So if you ever see an interview of him from the early to mid 70s, really what John Draper was trying to do was explain to people exactly your point, which is telephones are basically computers. Mm-hmm. And let me show you how a computer can manipulate a phone line. So he used to do this demonstration pretty often in the 70s, where he'd show how, very similar to war games, how an auto dialer works and how I can make, this computer, these very basic functions we take for granted today, were blowing the minds of these interviewers. The idea that I could type on my keyboard and it would call a number without me physically touching the phone was blowing people's minds that we take for granted. He was actually trying to develop something equitable to Skype today. Remember, this is an era of people with keeping business cards, and they got Rolodexes, and they have secretaries. And he's like, look, as a matter of practicality, if I'm able to find a way to automate not just how we manage our contacts, but manage our phone numbers and how those phone calls are made, and maximize the technology of a computer, Charlie 1 and 2. This is something that's going to benefit people. And in the process, he became a bit crazy. He became obsessed really with this idea that the phone companies had silver boxes. Right. They basically had, within each telephone exchange within the city, a silver box. And that silver box allowed the phone company to tap into calls. So if there were warrants for phone taps, they could do it by dialing up this number and then redirecting to another line to listen in. And he thought it was a huge privacy issue. And that's always where he stood on what he was doing. He was like, I went and found these silver boxes originally. That's what I was looking for. I didn't know they existed. We thought they were myths. We found out for some mobsters in New York that wasn't the case. And so it goes through this whole process of, looking for these silver boxes and using the application he was already developing to start auto dialing numbers. And he figured out that, look, within 35 hours, I can basically map every exchange by training my computer to know the difference between a dial tone, someone picking up, someone hanging up, and then whether or not it's a computer. And I could isolate it and figure out what it was. And so he was just doing that. And he said the only reason he did it was to prove to people that these violations of privacy were occurring by Bell South and, all the major
All the
characters at the
bells.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, so I think he really paints himself, even back then, painted himself as like this force for social justice and the protection of citizens' rights. I think, to your point, as he matured, he became even more eccentric, and that led to a few issues. I'm sure you heard about those.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff going around with this guy that, not good stuff. But um, the other thing, he's a self-proclaimed raver. Like he goes to a lot of raves. This is probably leading
Well,
into
that
what
might
he's
go
got.
back to the other thing.
Yeah, that's what I just said. Yeah, like this is all starting to come together now. But yeah, he's a
Yeah.
raver, and he did some music in Australia in
Right.
1995. He partnered with Casual One, I think is the band. I forget the name. I could not find the song. There's a song that he did. He contributed to it at least. It's like a rave song, right? UMD. Um, anyways, but yeah, he's done a lot of different things. But his big claim to fame obviously is the Captain Crunch whistle, the Boson whistle, which is what I show here. These whistles, by the way, if you go out on eBay, they sell for about 100 bones,
Wow.
they're not cheap. It's kind of like there's a couple of Ready Player One pages that I follow. I know JR follows them. I see him posting and commenting in some of these as well. But in some of those channels, whenever a gunter gets a whistle, they usually post it in there like a trophy kind of thing. Like I finally got one, whether they found it at garage sale or they went and bought it on eBay for $100 or whatever. But they're out there. You can actually get them on 3D printers, or a lot cheaper. But there are people that make them on 3D printers as well, and they still work. Now the whistles don't work today because one, we gotta have an analog phone line first off, and then two, as soon as they found out about this, they went and put in precaution or protection so that you couldn't initiate a call with a tone anymore. Right? It was like I forget what the check and balance was, but they did stop this once this was known. So yeah, he's a very interesting person. If you get a chance, go watch the interviews, listen to them, whatever. He's a very eccentric person.
Preferably those before 2017, because the interviews after that are going
Yeah.
to be disturbing.
They're disturbing and they're a little uncomfortable to listen to. Where were you on a night of whatever? How old was he?
Well,
Okay.
I may have had an erection at the time.
Dang it! I shouldn't have laughed on that because that would have been the stinger at the end of this episode. All right, let's get out of here before it gets worse. Okay, let's talk about this. This will be a very quick reference because we don't have the time to get to into every one of these individually. But this is the reference. I still didn't know what long neglected dwelling that line referred to or where to look for it. I visited every neglected dwelling I could think of. Recreations of the Addams Family's house, the abandoned shack in Evil Dead trilogy, Tyler Durden's flop house in Fight Club, and Lars' homestead on Tatooine. No luck finding the Jade Key inside any of them. Dead end after dead end. And so I've got a picture of all four of those: the Addams Family house, the house from Evil Dead, Lars' homestead, and Fight Club. Now, in a few episodes ago, you asked me what's the most recent pop culture reference that is included in Ready Player One, and I still haven't finished going through all of the references to figure out if this is it. But this may be it. It might be Fight Club as the oldest one.
Newest one.
Sorry, yeah, newest reference here. And then I've got two pictures of the Lars homestead because this is one where the Addams Family homestead is abandoned because it gives the creepy vibe. We get that. The Evil Dead one, all hell, it literally breaks out there. So the fact that it's even standing is pretty impressive. The Fight Club one, this is what is what's the movement called that they start in Fight Club? I can't think of the name now. Look that up.
Is it Fight Club?
No, it's not Fight Club. Anyways, whatever the movement is that they start, right? This becomes the headquarters for them, and it's just an abandoned house that Tyler Durden and the main character, the same character, end up coming up with. But I had a hard time, like I get it, and I'm not challenging Arnie Klein that the Lars homestead is like a dwelling long neglected, but he didn't have, like, Rise of Skywalker's not out, and to me, that's really the only time that it's really a true home that's long neglected. Other than that, if you say that it is, then you're taking a cheap shot at Aunt Beru. Like, she doesn't keep this thing up to date.
Right.
The way it looks in episode 4 and I guess in episode 3 as well, but in episode 4 for sure, it looks that way because it's been on Tatooine and everything there just dies and gets deteriorated because the sun. They've got 2 suns and everything's so hot, and there's some sandstorms and all that. But I don't know that it's long neglected. Now, I did include the picture from The Last Skywalker or The Rise of Skywalker because that is when they finally show it, and it does look dilapidated and long neglected. But he wouldn't have had the benefit of knowing that movie was coming out. So the only picture that I could think of where it was long neglected was after they got toasted and burned. So
Project Mayhem. That's your
Project
answer.
Mayhem. That's it. Thank you.
All right. So, but when I read that, I just assumed like he was thinking about it from the perspective of, say, the end of Jedi, right? Like, yeah, they don't ever show it on film, but you would assume that house is now not long neglected. If you were in the Jedi era, like no one's there, like it's got to be just a mess.
And it was, yeah. I mean, it definitely was. Nobody would live there for a long time.
Yeah, and I kind of I pose the Addams Family being long neglected. That's a fancy pants house they got going on inside.
Is. And that's just the picture from the actual intro. Like when they actually show the shots of the movie, or the shots from outside the mansion. I don't know if they're real or not. I guess they are, but it doesn't look like this. It looks more upkept than that. Whatever. We're getting real nitpicky here on some of this stuff. But anyways, those are the 4 episodes, or the 4 homes, and we're not going to talk about each one of them because we're out of time. Okay, I think we're gonna end on this. Not that I wanted to, but this is Rocky Horror Picture Show. The reference says, one night she took me to see the Rocky Horror Picture Show in a huge stadium-sized movie theater on the planet Transsexual, where they held the most highly attended and longest-running weekly screening of the movie in the Oasis. So Rocky Horror Picture Show is a movie that came out in 1975. It was directed by Jim Sharman. It is a movie that is based on the Rocky Horror Show by Richard O'Brien, who appears in the movie. It stars the Devil, Tim Curry, as Dr. Frankenfurter, Susan Sarandon as Janet Weiss, Barry Bostwick as Brad Majors, Meatloaf as Eddie, and the Delivery Boy. And there's a number of other people that are in this that have gone on to do amazing things in Broadway, but I didn't include them because, probably don't know who they are. Synopsis from Internet Movie Database says, a newly engaged couple have a breakdown in an isolated area and must seek shelter at the bizarre residence of Dr. Frankenfurter. Boy, there's a lot more to that. All right. I'm going, full disclosure, Will. And since this show came on, I have gotten a lot of grief about liking everything we talk about. And I will, in all honesty, everything that we have talked about, everything that we've brought up here, with one minor exception, and I can't even think what that is right now. But yes, I have liked everything because I just like a lot of things. I will honestly say right now on the show, I do not like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Like, I cannot get into it. I've tried, and we'll talk about this because you and I did this in high school. We went together at a midnight showing. It was the most awkward experience for me. And I'm an outgoing person. Like, I'm outgoing. I'll get up on stage. I can sing. I can dance. Do all that stuff. But
show me. Prove that.
No,
that's something for the Patreons there. I'm going to sing and dance. Are you a pirate? The Pirates of Penzance?
But this one, like, I don't know, man. I've really tried, and it's been years since I've seen it. Probably to the tune of 20 years since I've seen this movie because I've tried so many times prior to that and could never get into it. And I thought, okay, for the show, I'm going to sit down, dedicate some time to really watch this and try to appreciate it. And I could not do it again. Like, I sat through it and I wanted this thing to be over. It was I just didn't like it at all. Now, that said, I will say that the experience of going and doing the live midnight showings is different. And there were certain things that I liked about it, just being, social and having the people do it and all the callbacks, which we'll talk about here. I get that. Like, that part was okay to me. But on the surface, the content is nothing that really interests me. And that's nothing that, other than that, it's not interesting to me. And I don't like, I like 1 or 2 songs, but the soundtrack otherwise is not. It seems like a lot of the songs sound very similar to me. I don't know. Help me out here. I feel like I'm just trashing this, and I don't mean to, but I'm not a big fan of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, period.
I think the reason I like the Rocky Horror Picture Show is, first of all, as you mentioned, it was the Rocky Horror Show before in London, England. And And they did a conversion of that stage show into this movie in a really short period of time. Filming started 5 days after the day I was born.
No, well, it was meant to be.
It was meant to be. And I will have you know, for all the dislike you have for this film, it is 18th all time in gross revenue, right? $340 million in revenue.
It's still in the theater though, but yeah, I get it.
How do you not like it? Because it's got a very Ernie Klein thing. It has literal Easter eggs in the movie. Like they hid Easter eggs on the set so that you could find them. This movie is not a great film, right? It's not.
It wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant to be, right?
Yeah. Right. It is a great cult film, right? So if you're not, you need to take all of your chips and just go all in, baby. It's like when we went to Star Wars Celebration. You know, I'm rocking out my Mega Man X-Wing fighter costume. I got the lights in it. I'm taking pictures with randos. Not Albert.
Nope.
No, dude, I think there's part of you that doesn't allow to put all the chips in. And if you look, I put Star Wars Celebration on all the chips in at like maybe a 7. Like me going full costume and you going full costume would be like a 7. Going all in at Rocky Horror, you better be at 10, baby. You might have to turn that thing to 11 because the only way you're going to enjoy it is that way, right? Like now, I hear rumor that it's also tradition for people to smoke a ganja before they go to the film, but we didn't have to do that because we were drama people.
Yeah, we were.
So we saw this together back in the day, right? So midnight showings were always the highest showings for this film. Always. Even when it came out, which was very limited release, they noticed that midnight showings, and I think largely because the audience didn't want people to know they were going, would start going to the midnight showings, and then it just became tradition. To this day, it is in regular rotation in over 700 movie theaters nationwide. There is not a major city in the United States that you can't go see Rocky Horror Picture Show at. All in Rocky Horror Picture Show at some point.
Saturday at midnight.
Yes.
Well, hold that thought because I want to come back to that. We'll talk more about that. I mean, these are some of the scenes. You know, again, it's hard for me to like. I'm like, okay, let me pick my favorite scenes. Well, okay, that was difficult. But these were the more memorable ones. I mean, the characters and how they transition in the top left hand corner. You know, early on in the film to what we see them at the very end. Did you
say transition?
Oh, boom, boom. You know, so I will say this, like Tim Curry, oh my goodness, he's freaking amazing in this movie. Like he is awesome in this movie. I don't know that outside of like, he plays the devil in, what's the movie called? Yep. That one.
Yep.
That one with Tom Cruise. Goodness. Legend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like I like him in Legend as well, and I haven't really seen a lot of Tim Curry movies. I know he's in Clue. People say he does a really good job there, but he's like all in on this character. Yeah. There's a picture of Meatloaf as Eddie, who I like his song. I like his, and then Time Warp was, you know, that's the one thing. Like, if there's anything I like from this movie the most, it's definitely that song. And my goodness, did we ever do enough of that song in high school? Like, it seems like everybody in the drama club and program was always doing that. Even when we weren't at Rocky Horror Picture, people were doing this thing. And I have a picture up here right now where I'm showing it's just a jump to the left, step to the right. It's got the dance moves, all that. But that's a great number. I think that's really good. Here's the picture. So in the Ready Player One novel, he when they're actually in the flick itself, he mentions that that Artemis goes dressed as Columbia, and he goes as Eddie. So that's what she would look like on the left-hand side. And that is Eddie there with the saxophone, played by Meatloaf, of course, and that's what he would have looked like. So,
all right. I know you don't like this film, but here comes a game for you, Albert.
Oh, come on.
Here we go.
I'm going to do terrible. I don't
Yeah,
know.
You're going to do terrible. Now, go back. It's going to be right here. Transitions well into the callbacks. Some of the answers are up here. So, I will let you cheat and use these answers here. All right.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yeah, all right.
It's going to be the same question. I'm going to give you 3 items. You tell me which of the 3 items you should not be bringing to the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Got it.
Now, this one's got like 6 of them on there. That's going to give you a little head start. It's not going to be a big deal. All right, here we go.
Okay.
Newspaper,
Yes.
teddy bear, water
Oh,
pistol.
you bring the newspaper.
No, you're going to bring two of them. One of them doesn't belong.
Okay, then it's the teddy bear.
That is correct, sir. Don't bring the
Because
teddy
I remember
bear.
the teddy bear, the scene in there.
No, you don't take the teddy bear.
Oh,
You're playing the game wrong, sir.
wait, don't
you're doing it all wrong.
There's
son.
a teddy bear in this movie, though, right?
No, like the water pistol's
no.
used in the rain scene, and then the
You keep
newspaper.
going.
It's like
I'm
the
gonna-
same scene. Here
There's
we
a
go.
teddy bear. I'm going to find it. Go on.
I'm not saying there's no teddy bear in the movie. You just don't bring one to the
Okay.
show with you.
All right, point to your fear. Okay, we'll get it. We got
Okay,
it.
here we go.
We're doing good now.
Flashlight.
Yeah.
Rice. Plastic teeth.
Plastic teeth.
You are correct, sir. Don't bring that.
So yeah, I remember when we went, all the rice that was being thrown. Like I have recollections of that memory. But go on.
Yes. And many theaters, including here in San Diego, they don't like you to do rice anymore. You have to bring bubbles on the rice scene. Because every theater has like its own rules to the callbacks, like what you can do. I'm going to get you back in this mix because I know why. That's only one of the reasons you don't like Rocky Horror Picture Show. The other reason is the same reason that people don't like going to Catholic church. It's that if you don't know all the sayings, it's incredibly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like if you're sitting there and people are like, peace be with you, and also with you, and you're just like, I don't know what to say. Like even Catholics that we went to high school with, but only go back to church for funerals and weddings, and they're always awkward at communion. They can't remember which hand to accept the Eucharist with. Like the whole thing. That's what Rocky Horror Picture Show is to people who are non-fans. It's just like this weird culty thing that people are doing. And I don't know any of the words and there's not a missalette that I can read. Actually, there are. They're online.
No, I know there is now, but go on. Okay, last one.
No, you got three more, but I'm only going to do two because we're out of time. Here we go. Rubber gloves.
Yeah.
Spoons. Toilet paper.
Spoons.
Yeah. Well, that was easy because that was on there. Okay, ready?
Shut up. Go on. Next one.
Toast. Spatula. Confetti.
Toast, spatula, and confetti. So confetti's on the list, so I get that one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's between toast and a spatula. I'm gonna go with spatula.
You are correct, sir.
Yes.
Last one, bonus round. Clock, bell, playing cards.
Playing cards is on the list. So I'm good there. So clock and bell. Bell.
It's clock.
Damn.
But hey, that was impressive. You did pretty good. Of course, your cheat sheet here had half the answers, so
yeah,
looks like it's American history all over again for you.
That's right. So as we're talking about this, right, there's call outs, right? There's things that you bring, there's things that you do if you've never been to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. There are, and I think I've got, no, I didn't include them. So, and there's the lines, like anytime, when Janet says, I'm coming with you, everybody screams, that'll be a first, right? And there's obviously an innuendo there. The owner of the phone might be a beautiful woman. He is, right? So you say these things, and that's the part that it was cool, but like I never could get into the movie, and like I could do that with a lot of other movies, and this is me, like how I internalize all that and didn't like it, but I think that part of it is neat. I do appreciate the fact that there are millions of people that do this and know everything. And maybe here's the thing, Will, when we went, it was our first time.
Yes,
and the tradition
were virgins.
and the tradition is. Now, mind you, I'm in high school. I think we were in 10th grade, maybe 11th grade when we did this, whatever it was. I was born and raised a very stout Catholic, and being called a virgin and then getting called up to I can't remember what they did. They called us up to the front of the theater. Remember that? And I had to do something that was like, didn't make me feel comfortable. Like, no, I don't want to do this. And they're like, no, you have to do this because you're here and it's, 12:05 and everybody's looking at you. That just experience was like, no, you know what? I really don't want to do this. I mean, I can't. I don't know what the hell this was to begin with, and I don't feel comfortable. But I went ahead and did it, and maybe that's what got me off on the wrong foot. Whoa, another innuendo.
I was gonna say that reminds me of my first date. I wasn't comfortable. They were making me do things.
So I wanted to bring this up. Do you know what this is a picture of that I've got up here?
That to me, sir, looks like Magic Time Machine.
That is the Magic Time Machine. So there is a restaurant in San Antonio, Texas, and in Dallas. They have a location in Dallas where it's called the Magic Time Machine. And you go here, it's a restaurant. They all of the people that are serving you food are all dressed up like famous characters, like Superman. Captain Jack Sparrow is like a more recent one, right? They have all these people, and they can serve you food dressed up as these characters. Well, one of the things, and I don't know if they do this to this day, but at least when we were in high school, we went here for a lot of different banquets and we went here just to eat and hang out and all this, right? But they would do the time warp. Do you remember this, where they would
Oh yeah,
play the music and then everybody would just get up?
everybody.
Like, well, you didn't have to, but if you wanted to, you could just get up out of your chairs.
The kind of banquets we went to, it was everybody.
It was everybody, yeah. And you would just do the time warp, and the staff would do it. You know, the people would come out from the back. They would do it. It was a really cool experience. But I do remember this, and I do appreciate the Magic Time Machine for what they do. So, yeah, if you're ever down there, check them out. They're pretty fun. And
don't expect good food. That is not a good food restaurant. It is a kitschy kind of fun place to take the kids. When was the last time you were at Magic Time Machine?
It was probably about it was before we left San Antonio, so maybe about 6 years ago.
Yeah, probably us too, about then. And I mean, it's got its charm.
I took the kids for like the experience, right?
Yeah, that's why we took the kids.
Not the food.
Right, yeah, the food's terrible.
But they were like, whoa, look, there's this character, and here's this character, and all that. And then they've got a car with food in it, and you get the food out of the car. All right. But here's the soundtrack, which, again, I think there's some good hits on here. Like, I say hits, but like the Time Warp is good. For me, like the first songs that come out are better than the last songs. And then it gets, the movie itself, like, here's another thing too. Like, this is all coming out now. Sorry. But the other thing that I think really bothers me about this movie is I had a really strong fear for Tommy. You remember the movie Tommy that came out in the 70s? Who?
Yeah.
Like, that movie is right up there with Mr. Yuck in terms of like getting a response out of me that's like not good. Like, I can't watch Tommy because it scared the crap out of me as a kid, and I don't want to watch it to this day. I can watch Exorcist all day long. I can watch all these other movies in the 70s, but for whatever reason, there was something about a rock opera that was filmed in that way that was kind of like this psychedelic weird thing that we were all doing in the 70s. And this, for me, feels like that at times. Like, as I'm watching it, I get shades of Tommy and, Tina Turner and the Iron Maiden and all that stuff. Like, oh, it's just, I don't know. It bothers me.
Well, once this show stops, we can have you lay down and you can tell me about your father.
I think you know him, but yeah.
I do.
But yeah, this is so anyways, where I was going with this is the music reminds me of stuff that was coming out like Tommy and some of in the 70s, there's full of these rock operas, right? I mean, Meatloaf did it with Bat Out of Hell, which we'll get to finally here. But there were a number of them that were out, and I don't know, there's something about it that didn't jive with me. I thought Susan Sarandon was pretty cute in this movie. All right, here is Meatloaf, and we'll end on Meatloaf, because what better way to end a show than with Meatloaf? So Meatloaf plays a role in this. He plays Eddie in the Rocky Horror Picture. Well, is there anything else you want to say about Rocky Horror?
No. I think we've got most of it. It could be its own show, but it'd be just me.
Yes, you can do that solo. You can do it as a bonus show on Patreon or something. All right, so this is Meatloaf, and the reference is, we talked about it earlier, Artemis played a note-perfect Columbia, and I had the honor of playing her undead love interest, Eddie. I altered my avatar's appearance so I look exactly like Meatloaf did in the role, but my performance and lip-syncing still kind of sucked. So Meatloaf, born in 1947, he's still alive to this day. We just saw him very recently on a couple of things, TV shows. But he was born Michael Lee Day. That is not his real name, Meatloaf. And he got his name from, I think it was his football coach. He was playing football in high school, and he said he basically called him a meatloaf. And so he took that name. He actually used that name in a couple of bands that he started early on, or performances that he did. He took that name of Meatloaf. And then obviously he's a member of the Rocky Horror Picture. He's done a number of albums, and we don't have them all here. I've got a couple pictures. This is probably a more recent picture in the top left-hand corner or left-hand side. Top right-hand corner is what you would have seen him doing in the late 70s, like during the Bat Out of Hell era. And then obviously the picture of him there as Eddie from Rocky Horror. He's got a lot of albums out. Now, I do like Meatloaf, and I like the band too. I like him. But Bat Out of Hell is a great album, I think. It came out in 1977. He followed up with a couple of albums after that. He came out with Bat Out of Hell 2. This was later on, like in 86. I don't remember the year on that one. Is it 86? It was in the 80s. I remember that.
Yeah.
Bat Out of Hell 2. And then there's actually a third one, Bat Out of Hell 3, which came out in 96. It didn't do so well. And it's not my favorite. But I do like these two albums. And there's a lot of mixed reviews about whether Bat Out of Hell is good or bad, and is it too over the top. But if you've never heard, like, if you think about like rock and roll music in a musical, that's what you're getting with Bat Out of Hell and Bat Out of Hell 2.
All of his music. So
Yeah, well, that's
Meatloaf
true, all of
doesn't
his.
consider himself like a musician. He considers himself an actor.
Right.
So, I mean, even when he got on Rocky Horror Picture Show, he was, treating himself as an actor. So if he kept changing his name too. So he went like Meatloaf for a while, like for his whole musical career. And then like in 99, he went to Meatloaf a Day. And then in 2002, he went to Michael a Day, which is his name. Then he used his whole name the next year, Michael Lee a Day. Then he went back to Michael Meatloaf a Day. And now he's been Meatloaf a Day from 2005 to present in everything he does. He only uses Meatloaf when he's doing music because he treats him like a character. Yeah. Hey, you forgot to mention that this is a proper Texas boy from Dallas, Texas.
He is from Dallas, of all places, yeah.
Yep, and he hates Meatloaf.
Does he really?
So in several interviews.
That's got to be awkward. Like, how many times has he been asked that, right? Do you like Meatloaf? Come on, guys. Seriously?
Hey, so a little factoid on this dude. He was actually, him and his friends were at the hospital when JFK's motorcade arrived, right? He actually saw Jackie O going into the hospital.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, and his daughter's married to Scott Ian from Anthrax.
Really?
Yeah.
I love Anthrax.
Yes.
Among the Living is one of my favorite albums from them. So this all of his music is really good. I think you got to have a taste for him. I remember when Bat Out of Hell came out, like they didn't know how to classify this. Like they literally didn't know what the hell is this. Is it rock? Is it opera? I mean, what is going on here? He was kind of in a genre that had really never been done, not to this level, right? And a lot of the credit goes back to Jim Steinman, who produced these two albums. He didn't produce the third one, and maybe that's why he didn't do as well as these first two. And Jim Steinman, we don't need to get into this. We could honestly do 30 minutes on Jim Steinman and what he's produced. He's done some of the best albums out there. He's one of the most talented producers out there. But he definitely cut his teeth here with Meatloaf on Bat Out of Hell back in 1977. Bat Out of Hell, by the way, 43 million copies worldwide. So that ranks up there. I mean, there's a lot of arguing and back and forth about how accurate the numbers were, especially in the 70s and in some of the 80s, because we weren't tracking this stuff digitally. And so it was a lot of the record stores saying, oh, yeah, we sold this many, and maybe they didn't. But at 43 million, it ranks up there in like pretty high in terms of all-time album sales, which is kind of
I think at one point they were saying it was like at 3 or something.
Yeah.
It was way up there.
No, it's way up there for sure. Here are some of his more notable movies. Here's Wayne's World. In the top left-hand corner, you've got Bob, from Fight Club, with the breasts and the exposed nipples, and that's really gross. And then you got him as the bus driver in Spice World.
I was hoping you were going to mention that. I thought we were going to get away with you not saying it, and then I was going to be forced to bring it up.
Nope.
Right? So, Albert, what do you know about Spice World?
Not a whole lot. I don't know. No, there was a period in my life where I was into Spice Girls so much, and I'm not afraid to say this, like, trust me, this is like an open book of me now, throughout all of these episodes, but I was so into Spice Girls that when I was playing on a 5 versus 5 Tribes 2 professionally ranked, tournament, I was listed as Spice Boy. Like, that was my name that I was using. That was my handle for the longest time in honor of the Spice Girls, because it was during the 90s when that was out, but.
Okay, so it was out, but that wasn't something everybody was doing. I remember for one of your birthdays, me having to go to Hastings and buy Spice Girl stuff for you for your birthday because it's what you asked for.
Oh,
and I remember checking out and that dude just staring at me like, look at this creep show, dude.
It's not for me, man. I swear.
It's not for me. It's just for my best friend.
It's for my little sister.
Your best friend's a 12-year-old girl?
Yep. Thanks for bringing that up, by the way.
Oh, it's good time. You brought it up yourself. Otherwise, Meatloaf, probably more than anyone I've ever seen. If you're ever on his IMDb page, he updates it like a crazy person.
Really?
It has got more entries than Ian McClellan. He's got everything he's ever done, including being in the background of some film when he was a child at a fair scene. And then he lists every music video he's ever done on his IMDb page as part of his acting credits. It's interesting.
Yeah. And this doesn't do any justice. I mean, there's only 3 pictures on there, and he's been in so much. It's crazy.
And yet Spice World made it. Why?
It had to.
Why?
There's still a part of me that loves the Spice Girls.
Oh, I got a feeling it's a bunch of you.
That's probably true. All right. Well, you know what? On that note, I think we're going to end the show right there. That's the last thing I had to talk about, at least for that. That's all I have to say about that. And, we went over on time. I think we were trying to get in at under 2 hours and 15 minutes. That's fine. We're just a little bit over. So thanks for everybody that joined us tonight on this episode. We'll be back again next Thursday. And chapter 18 is no, picnic, right? There's a lot in chapter 18. So we'll be talking Simon and Simon, Men Without Hats, the safety dance, Buckaroo Banzai will finally make its way in here. And that becomes kind of a big thing here in that chapter. We'll talk about John Travolta, Plastic Man, James Brown is Dead by LA Style. We've mentioned that already in an episode previous, but the one thing that I'm going to spoil it right now, the one thing that I'm probably going to land as far as the title goes is going to be something out of the Whiz Kids, because when I say there are certain shows that really were my favorites growing up, Space Giants is up there, Whiz Kids is up there. Like, this was my show. I could not wait for the show, and it did not age well. So I'm just letting you know right now, it's not a good show.
I am not looking forward to the Whiz Kids.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. I can't wait.
All right. Every time that you mention a Whiz Kids reference, I'm going to talk about Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, why would you do that? That's not even fair. All right. Any final words before we get out of here?
No, that's it.
Right.
Don't forget tomorrow's Patriot Day in remembrance of everyone who lost their lives at 9/11.
Oh, that's right. I thought you were being funny, but no, that's
no, that's.
I thought the Patriots were playing or something, but okay.
No.
Yeah,
no.
9/11, never forget.
Although Meatloaf is a huge fantasy football fan.
Oh, right? There you go.
So he actually, part of several leagues. So he was probably watching the game tonight while we were doing this podcast.
Unlike you.
Yeah, it's okay. The Texans lost.
Okay, good. All right, we'll go Texas. We'll see you guys next week for Chapter 18, The Whiz Kids.
The views and opinions of the Basement hosts are of our own and are not in any way affiliated with Random House or Ernest Klein. All quotes, music, sounds, trademarked, and copyrighted material referenced in the show are owned by the respectful companies and creators and are used by the Basement as fair use for entertainment purposes only. It would take me a month to read this whole disclaimer, but sad to say, I don't have that kind of time.